Chapter 1149. Wah! The halos behind Sword Ancestor quickly twisted into a golden disk. On the disk appeared a large number of imprints of divine swords. They alternated with each other, converging into a circle, and continued to rotate. Sword Ancestor's entire being was rendered like a god. Sword intent. It was filled with sword intent. It was completely filled with sword intent. In this move, Sword Ancestor relied entirely on sword intent. He opened his eyes wide, staring straight at this move. Sword Ancestor leaped into the air, golden light flashing like a sun. Heaven and earth divine fist. The war god bellowed and punched toward the sky. An inexplicable burst of brute force shot out from the tip of his fist, shaking the sky. Boom! The entire sky began to tremble and darken in an instant. Following that, a terrifying pressure descended from the heavens, as if a mountain was crashing towards them. Bang! Bang! When the pressure touched Sword Ancestor's body, it immediately caused a violent explosion, and the remaining pressure continued to descend. Su Yun looked over. The pressure touched his body and also caused an extremely terrifying explosion. The destructive aura surged in all directions. In the distance, the martial god sect leader's immortal power was sealed, and he was unable to resist the pressure that came from the war god's miraculous power. His body instantly exploded, and he died. As for the entire peak of the martial god sect, it was as if it had been shaved off a layer. Other than the strange stone in the middle, the rest of the place had been split open, and it was a complete mess. Is this purely using brute force? But how did this pressure descend from the sky? Thousands of questions flashed past Su Yun's mind. He realized that he actually could not understand the war god's moves. He forcefully sent his brute force into the air and then detonated it, causing it to descend from the sky and bombard the ground below. Ling Qing, you seem to have sensed Su Yun's doubts and said, "Detonating brute force? Can that be done? Furthermore, what kind of power is there to disperse the power?" His main point is obviously not to rely on this attack to defeat Sword Ancestor. The reason he did this should be for the next attack. Ling Qing, you said. Hearing that, Su Yun immediately turned his head to look, only to realize that the martial god had moved again. The pressure seemed to be only to delay the Sword Ancestor's attack. When the pressure fell, it was impossible for the Sword Ancestor to not be affected at all. Even if it was only for half a breath of time, it was enough for the group of martial god. In a fight of this level, any small flaw or mistake would determine the outcome of the battle. Although the two of them were powerful, and it was almost impossible for them to make mistakes, their so-called mistakes and flaws did not come from themselves. They were forcefully created by their opponents. The moment the pressure fell, the martial god rushed to the side of the swordmaster. He clenched his hands into fists and fiercely punched the swordmaster's head. He activated all of his power. In that instant, Su Yun could actually feel that the martial god's attack could shatter the entire ground. 1,000 swords pierced the heart. The Sword Ancestor's reaction was not slow at all. The moment the martial god got close to him, the golden will behind him released a myriad of rays of light, and every ray of light was actually a sharp sword. The closer he got to the Sword Ancestor, the more concentrated the sharp swords were, and the harder it was to dodge. Obviously, the Sword Ancestor had sensed the martial god's intentions from the very beginning, and had also planned to use this move to turn the situation around. He did not seem to want to continue defending, and he knew that if this continued, he would definitely lose, so he wanted to rely on this move to decide the outcome. Poochie, 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 the terrifying sword of light directly pierced through the martial god's body. The martial god's body was already as strong as a god's, and ordinary blades and sword were unable to break through his body a long time ago. However, the Sword Ancestor's move was able to easily pierce through it, showing how powerful the attack power of this move was. However, rumble. The Sword Ancestor's body suddenly smashed into the ground from the sky, fiercely smashing into the martial god's summit below. Other than the strange stone and the formation area below, the rest of the area instantly shattered, and the entire martial god summit that was close to 10,000 meters above the ground was shattered. Su Yun stood on the ground, and a portion of the power was transmitted to his body, and even he found it difficult to disperse the terrifying power, causing his body to tremble nonstop. Su Yun looked at the martial god in the air in astonishment and found it hard to believe. The martial god's body had been pierced by the sword of light, and there were nearly 100 transparent holes in his body. He looked extremely miserable and terrifying, but his punch did not stop and did not even weaken in the slightest. This punch had landed squarely on the sword ancestor's body. Su Yun's face was extremely ugly. He did not know if the sword ancestor could continue fighting after taking this attack. Without a doubt, the martial gods exchange this time had clearly decided the outcome of this battle. Although his entire body was filled with holes, the strength of his body was beyond imagination. That exuberant life force allowed him to survive even though his heart had been pierced through. Su Yun anxiously flew towards the sword ancestor. At the moment, the sword ancestor was still lying on the ground. The golden light behind him had already dissipated. His face was extremely pale. The corners of his mouth, eyes, and ears were all covered in blood. The sword intent and immortal energy in his body had all been scattered by this terrifying attack. He had completely lost his fighting strength. The martial god had defeated the sword ancestor in an overwhelming manner. "Sword ancestor!" Su Yun shouted, rushed over, and immediately pressed on his chest, channeling immortal chi to repair the injuries in his body. But at this time, the sword ancestor fiercely grabbed his wrist. "Idiot, don't waste your energy. You still have an opponent. The current you cannot waste even a single bit of immortal chi." Sword ancestor's voice sounded extremely strenuous, but his hand that was grabbing towards Su Yun seemed to be especially powerful. "I have already used up a lot of this guy's strength, especially that attack, just now. I can feel that he has definitely used up 20% of the strength in his body. Adding to the fight I had with him before, he probably only has 70% of his strength now. You won't be at a disadvantage against him." "That's right. I've never been at a disadvantage." Su Yun held Sword Ancestor's hand tightly. "Sword Ancestor, you should lie down for a while. Don't talk anymore. Quickly recover. What else do you need to recover? Let me tell you, if you can't beat him, then think of a way to run. Don't think that I was as stubborn as I was in the past. If I wasn't stubborn, I wouldn't have ended up in such a state. Don't worry. If I can't beat him, then run away has always been one of my principles." "Why?" Just then, a burst of pressure descended from the sky once again. Su Yun turned his head, only to see that the martial god had already rushed over, and his terrifying fist was directly smashing towards him. "Sword Ancestor, you can't do it anymore? Fine, since that's the case, then let me destroy you." The martial god did not show any mercy. The power accumulated in his fist was actually even greater than the previous attack. Before the fist even arrived, the ground split open again, and the entire martial god peak seemed to be shaking. The person who fell was like a falling meteor. The temperature instantly rose as he fell, and his aura was especially terrifying, as if this punch was going to destroy the world. What kind of breathtaking attack was this? Sword Ancestor opened his eyes wide. Looking at the soul-stirring scene, he exclaimed, "Be careful." Su Yun frowned. He immediately carried Sword Ancestor's body and scattered to the side. Boom! The upper half of the martial god peak shattered again, and the strange stone fell another 100 meters. This won't do. If this strange stone can't absorb the firmament essence here, it won't be able to quickly sublimate. The martial god frowned. He retracted his fist and looked to the side, only to see that Su Yun had already dodged to the side while carrying Sword Ancestor. His speed was extremely fast, and the martial god did not even have time to react. Such a fast speed, kid. Your strength seems to be not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Since that's the case, then I will have to be serious." The martial god snorted, his expression becoming focused. "Master Ancestor, you should retreat to the side and recuperate first. I'll deal with this person." Su Yun let go of Sword Ancestor, and said seriously, "Be careful, just prepare to retreat." Sword Ancestor said, "Retreat?" Su Yun was startled, but did not say anything. Only the corner of his mouth raised into a strange arc. "It won't be that easy to escape. This old man hates cowards the most. All cowards must die." He growled and rushed forward again. That punch actually split into millions of fist shadows that blotted out the sky and earth as they smashed down. If all of these fists were to land on a person's body, it was unknown what would happen. Just then, a large number of sharp swords suddenly shot out from the sword sheath behind Su Yun. All of these sharp swords immediately lined up in front of him, forming a sword wall. The blade of the sword facing the martial god's incoming fist, each sword body was covered with immortal energy. Seeing that, the martial god's face changed. He immediately retracted his fist and stopped his attack. If this punch were to go down, it would hit the blade of the sword. He would not be able to pull it out at all. "My God, cunning." The martial god stared at Su Yun and snorted. Su Yun did not say a word. However, Ling Qingyu, who was inside the sword sheath, spoke out. "Su Yun, quickly retract your sword. Do not use the swords in the sword sheath anymore. If not, it will only speed up the eruption of the vicious sword." Hearing that, Su Yun immediately removed the sword wall, his face revealing an awkward expression, and said, "I'm sorry, I forgot. Su Yun, actually you don't have to worry. Although this martial god skills are extraordinary, and his martial art attainments are extremely high, but your hard work over the years is not fake. You are not afraid of him, right?" Ling Qingyu said. Su Yun chuckled, but his eyes became extremely resolute. "Of course." With that, he took out the Lotus Star Sword again, but he was not in a hurry to activate the sword chi. Instead, he assumed a stance, holding onto the Lotus Star Sword with one hand. He stared at the martial god. The martial god seemed to have noticed something and snorted. "Interesting, this old man has been lonely for so long. Today, I finally have some fun." Chapter 1150. Su Yun was unable to imagine how powerful the Sword Ancestor was at his peak, but without a doubt, this martial god was definitely not at the level of the Sword Ancestor at his peak. But to Su Yun, this was also an extremely powerful and terrifying opponent. In the past, after activating the Great Demon Saint and Great Demon Soul, those opponents were basically crushed without any difficulty. But this time, against the martial god, Su Yun did not plan to use the Demon Saint Devil Soul. He really needed an opponent to test his strength. Su Yun took a deep breath. He decided not to rely on those powerful magic treasure this time, and only relied on his own basic methods to fight the enemy. Swordsmanship? Sword control technique? Can your swordsmanship compare to the Sword Ancestor? You're dreaming if you think you could defeat me with that sword in your hand. The martial god sneered. He arrogantly looked at Su Yun as if he was looking at a pitiful ant. "Don't be too arrogant. Su Yun's sword technique attainments are already very high." The Sword Ancestor said indifferently. "High? How high can it be?" The martial god suddenly extended his hand out and grabbed. This time, he unexpectedly gathered the immortal chi, but the immortal chi was not to attack Su Yun, but to transform into a gray sword, which he held in his hand. "Since I'm called the martial god, I'm not only good with fists. I've also dabbled in sabers, spears, staffs, and clubs. Kid, let me see how high your attainments in swordsmanship are." With that, the martial god vanished once more. The space trembled violently as he approached Su Yun at a speed that exceeded his previous speed. Since one wanted to injure others with swordsmanship, one must first get close to the opponent. Other than the Imperial Sword technique, all other swordsmanship revolved around the target, surrounding them and stabbing them. The way of the sword was nothing but ever-changing. Whether it was a mortal using a sword or a deity using a sword, one must not violate this principle. Otherwise, what one was using would not be a sword. The might of a martial god sword was no small matter. Su Yun did not dare to be careless. He immediately closed his eyes and felt the location of the martial god. Such a high-speed opponent could no longer be seen with the naked eye. Sword Ancestor stared at Su Yun. The current him was heavily injured, and it was difficult for him to determine the location of the martial god. Although he had seen countless existences more powerful than the martial god in the past, he couldn't help but be subdued by the martial god's skills now. Suddenly, ripples appeared on Su Yun's right. Could it be here? Su Yun suddenly opened his eyes, but he swung his sword fiercely at the left side. Dang! The snow-white lotus star sword directly blocked the incoming war god's sword. The sword master was stunned and suddenly realized. It turned out that when the war god was about to make his move, he had first shaken the space on the right, attracting Su Yun's attention. At the moment, Su Yun was completely focused, but his entire body was tense. Any slight movement would attract his attention, and the killing intent would affect his judgment. At the same time that the void trembled, the martial god even deliberately released a strand of killing intent, intending to create an illusion, making Su Yun think that he would appear on the right side, and then move to the left with an explosive speed, intending to catch Su Yun off guard. However, he did not expect that Su Yun would not be fooled. The martial god suddenly swung his strength and knocked Su Yun away. His face was filled with fanaticism. It was unknown if he was angry or shocked. All right, good, good. You are indeed the successor of the sword ancestor, to be able to see through my move. Hearing that, Su Yun kept his lotus star sword and said indifferently, "This move of yours, is there anything unique about it? Oh, are you provoking me?" The martial god's face gradually turned cold as he snorted. Do you think that there is still a need to provoke me right now? It seems like I, the martial god, have been in this crappy place for too long, to the point that the world has forgotten about my existence and can no longer feel my majesty. Good. Very good. The martial god seemed to be unable to stand Su Yun's arrogance anymore. The killing intent in his eyes exploded, and he rushed forward again. This time, the space shook violently like a stormy sea. This time, the martial god did not choose to circle left and right, but directly attacked from the front. His sword was aimed straight at Su Yun. Without the immortal chi, there was only brute force left. He had already made up his mind to kill. If it was said that he was just casually exchanging blows with Su Yun before, then now he was already going all out. Su Yun's entire body tensed up as he stared at the attack. Although the sword looked very ordinary, there were tens of thousands of different types of power in the sword edge. The tyrannical power, the gentle power, the sinister power, the scorching power. The martial god was indeed the martial god. This casual attack was something that many people would never be able to understand in their entire lives. However, of all the techniques in the world, only speed was hard to break. Su Yun placed his body and mind into an ethereal state and suddenly moved. His speed was also extremely terrifying, but unlike the martial god who could directly cause space to tremble, Su Yun's speed was so fast that he directly disappeared into the void, like the wind. Endless divine power. The martial god seemed to have expected that Su Yun would dodge. His other hand immediately formed a fist with a loud shout. The moment he clenched his fist, a burst of power burst out from his palm. The power spread out, floating in all directions, but it did not immediately disperse, but like ice, it condensed in the area, and if a moving person touched the power, they would be blocked by the power. Su Yun was caught off guard. He suffered a lot of force, and his speed also slowed down a lot. So powerful! I never thought that power could be used like this. Su Yun was shocked. The martial god had brought him too many surprises, and today he had truly broadened his horizons. I'm distracted. Just then, the martial god suddenly grabbed onto a flaw in Su Yun's defense. With a loud shout, the gray sword directly slashed onto Su Yun's chest. Bang! The sharp sword did not pierce through the imperial battle robe, but it had taken away a lot of divine power. At the same time, the power on the sword was directly transmitted to Su Yun's body, causing him to instantly fly far away. Su Yun did his best to stabilize his body, and only after a long while did he disperse the energy on his body. When he stood still, he realized that the divine power on the imperial battle robe had been reduced by quite a bit. What? It actually didn't pierce through you? The martial god was startled. Then he snorted coldly. Seems like you still have a lot of incredible treasures. I don't just rely on treasures. Su Yun was also a little angry. He did not want to be in a passive state. The martial god was proficient in calculations. He would always look for an opportunity to attack, and would not give Su Yun any leeway to counterattack. His strategy was to use a high-pressure attack to make Su Yun fall into despair, unable to counterattack. If this continued, Su Yun's disadvantage would become greater and greater, and the counterattack methods he possessed would also be weakened bit by bit. He increased his speed once again, activating the Divine Wind Sword technique. The power released by the martial god did not seem to be able to last for long. When the power disappeared, Su Yun rushed forward again, directly getting close to the martial god. The snow-white lotus star sword in his hand smashed forward at a speed that surpassed the speed of light. Su Yun, who was in the spirit god realm, was able to unleash more than 10,000 swords in a single breath. The torrential sword attacks were simply impossible to defend against. The martial god swung the gray sword in his hand. The sword images intertwined with each other like a raging storm. The two swords clashed, creating a series of terrifying explosions. The aftermath of the explosions even caused Sword Ancestor, who was in the distance, to be unable to withstand it. He retreated a few steps, looking at Su Yun, who was fighting against the martial god head-on. The surprise in his eyes grew bigger and bigger. I never thought that after not seeing him for so long, this kid's strength would actually increase by so much. His future is truly limitless. The martial god's face tensed up. The sword in his hand did not stop. This time he was going all out. Suddenly, a black light shot out from the snow-white sword. The martial god was stunned, but before he could react, the black light directly struck his chest. The terrifying destruction actually tore a large hole in his chest. The martial god immediately roared. The roar from his mouth was extremely shocking and forcefully pushed Su Yun away. The two were forcefully separated. The martial god retreated to the side, looked down, and saw that his chest was rippling with evil chi, and then looked at Su Yun. He was holding onto his sword with one hand, and the snow-white holy sword was actually filled with dense evil chi, and an evil soul was jumping on the sword. Evil chi? Evil sword technique? The martial god narrowed his eyes. This move is called the Great Evil Sword Technique. Su Yun said indifferently, Great Evil Sword Technique. Interesting. The martial god's voice became heavy. The wound on his chest was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His powerful life force was simply astonishing. Looks like I have to show some of my abilities. Otherwise, I will be looked down upon by a junior like you. After the martial god finished speaking, he suddenly held onto the gray sword with both hands and started to quickly dance his arms. The sword seemed to have come to life, and as he danced, it continuously trembled. Every time it danced in a circle, a layer of mysterious power would be attached to the gray sword. Sword intent? No, it was a type of willpower that was similar to sword intent, but even stronger than sword intent. He never thought that the martial god's attainments in the way of the sword would be so terrifying. Whiz! Suddenly, the martial god's body swayed. Following that, a huge and heavy sword chi that was as big as a mountain came crashing over. Su Yun immediately raised his sword to meet the attack, and the sword chi shot out. Dong! The sword chi released by the Lotus Star sword collided with the sword chi that was like a mountain. The sword chi trembled for a moment, but did not dissipate. Su Yun was startled and immediately dodged. The sword chi flew over and crashed into the distance. Hide? Let's see where you can hide. The martial god snorted. His body immediately swayed, and the gigantic sword chi that was like a mountain crazily shot out from the gray sword. This could no longer be called sword chi. It was completely a river of swords. The sword chi was continuous. There were almost no gaps, and it covered the sky and covered the sun, leaving Su Yun nowhere to hide. Crash! His body was immediately engulfed by the sword chi. The heart-tearing, lung-splitting sword intent slashed at the imperial battle robe, causing the divine power of the battle robe to drop at an astonishing speed. In this way, It would not be long before the Imperial battle robe would be completely destroyed, and Su Yun would be torn into powder by the strange sword Qi. Chapter 11:51. Power. This powerful and special sword intent that was like a flood was actually mixed with an endless amount of power. Su Yun could not imagine how the war god converted his own power into this mystical sword intent. But he understood that if he did not do anything, he would be completely torn into pieces by this sword intent. Su Yun, quickly avoid it. Do not fight it head-on. Quickly leave. Sword Ancestor was anxious. His eyes gradually turned cold. He glanced at Su Yun, and then his gaze landed on the war god. A wave of killing intent floated out from his body. Master Ancestor, I want to leave, but I can't even leave now. This sword intent seems to be stuck to me. I can't move at all. Su Yun clenched his teeth and shouted. The divine power of the Imperial battle robe became weaker and weaker, thinner and thinner, as though it was at the end of its tether, unable to persevere any longer. Su Yun's skin could already feel the terrifying tearing intent coming from the sword intent. Crap, I have to leave immediately. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Su Yun's heart tensed up, his eyeballs swaying in all directions. But the sword intent's coverage was too wide. Within the sword intent, it was almost difficult for him to move. How difficult would it be to escape? Wait, Su Yun seemed to have thought of something. His gaze suddenly turned and looked at the sword sheath hanging on his waist. Limitless sword sheath. Right. He could enter the limitless sword sheath to seek protection. How powerful was the sword sheath? To be able to seal the vicious sword. How could it be an ordinary magic treasure? Even with this strength, it would definitely not be able to destroy it. One had to know that the power of the vicious sword was countless times stronger than the war god's strength. Su Yun had an idea. He immediately activated the technique to open the sword sheath and enter. But right at this moment, a burst of dazzling rainbow-colored light suddenly erupted from his body. The Imperial battle robe that covered his body suddenly changed. The surface layer that looked like it was about to be completely worn away by the sword intent suddenly produced a layer of glass color. This color dyed Su Yun's entire body with a myriad of colors. It was especially dazzling when this color appeared. The light that was released swept out in all directions the special sword. Intents around him were immediately destroyed, and a vacuum was created. The tearing intent that wrapped around Su Yun also disappeared without a trace. Su Yun was startled. He looked around blankly, his face full of astonishment. What's that? This power? Was it divine power? But it was completely different from the previous divine power. This was the purest form of divine power. What was going on? How did such a pure energy suddenly appear? The martial god was shocked. Su Yun's change this time was completely out of his expectations. What kind of magic treasure was that? In fact, the astonishment in Su Yun's heart was no less than that of the war god and sword ancestor. He lowered his head to look at the battle robe on his body and was unable to recover from his shock. The light on the Imperial battle robe was extremely dense. However, on the battle robe, a long and slender vein that looked like a river gradually appeared. These veins were like runes that were branded on the robe, and they were extremely snow-white and holy. This power, celestial pool? Su Yun was slightly startled, but his mind became clear. Could this power be the power of the celestial pool? If that was the case, wouldn't that mean that the Imperial battle robe had absorbed the power of the celestial pool? There was such a possibility. Back then, when he went down to the celestial pool to absorb the power of the celestial pool, all of his magic treasures were destroyed by the water of the celestial pool, and there weren't many magic treasures left behind. Back then, the Imperial battle robe also seemed to have signs of not being able to hold on, but in the end, it managed to hold on. Furthermore, the power of the celestial pool was actually effective against it. Su Yun could not understand. And in that short period of time, the power released by the Imperial battle robe had already dispersed most of the war god's sword intent in the surroundings. Bastard! Seeing that even this move could not do anything to Su Yun, the martial god was enraged. He could not immediately defeat Su Yun. This junior, to someone like him who looked down on the world, it could be said to be a great insult. His arms suddenly swelled up, and the clothes on his left and right arms were torn apart, revealing his thick and powerful arms. His arms glowed with light, and a yellow male tiger pattern appeared on his left and right sides. Faintly, it seemed as if a fierce tiger was roaring. His power was boiling. Su Yun could clearly feel that the war god's arms were like two energy sources that would never dry up, surging with power from his arms. His strength was rising crazily, and the speed at which it was increasing was astonishing. At this moment, Su Yun was unable to describe how strong the war god was. If it was said that the war god could break the heavens with a single punch, he would believe it. Lowly and weak fellow, I will let you know what the consequences of angering me are. The war god roared in a low voice. Even his voice could shake one's soul and cause the immortal chi to be in chaos. Crap, this guy didn't even use his full strength when he fought us earlier. He was too strong. Su Yun, be careful. Don't take it head on. Faster. Run. The sword ancestor sensed that something was wrong and immediately shouted out. This move wasn't something an ordinary immortal could face, let alone resist it. He believed that no one would be able to withstand this attack. But at that moment, Su Yun's expression became extremely focused. He stared at the war god with a serious expression in his eyes, as if he had made some sort of decision. He opened his mouth and said something that shocked the sword ancestor. No, I can't dodge this move. Not dodging. The sword ancestor thought that he had heard wrongly. He stared at Su Yun with his eyes wide open and immediately shouted, Do you know what you are facing now? This attack must be the war god's full power attack. If you don't dodge, your body will definitely explode and your soul will scatter. You can't resist, Su Yun. Your sword is light and agile. You need to constantly change the situation to find an opportunity, and now that you don't have an opportunity, the situation is not good for you. Master Ancestor, don't worry, Su Yun bellowed. This time, it is the only chance to decide victory or defeat. Hearing that, the sword ancestor was startled. He quickly calmed down and stared at Su Yun, feeling that he was not calm. Thinking about it carefully, since Su Yun dared to say such words, it meant that he had a bargaining chip. Since that was the case, he might not lose. At this point, if the war god did not lose, then Su Yun and the sword ancestor would die. Since Su Yun was already at a disadvantage, why not go all out? The sword ancestor stared intently at Su Yun. He did not make a sound. He only watched from afar. He stood behind Su Yun and did not escape. If Su Yun could not take this attack, the sword ancestor would definitely be implicated. This was a moment of life and death. Su Yun raised the lotus star sword in his hand, the sword tip facing the war god. He did not make any defensive stance. The imperial battle robe on his body also gradually dimmed, and there were no more ripples. Looking at Su Yun, he did not plan to activate it. Not defending? The sword ancestor and the war god both narrowed their eyes. Are you looking down on me? Good. Then go to hell. The war god could no longer hold it in. With a low roar, he punched out with both of his arms. The force that burst out from the tip of the two fists was like a heavenly wall that moved forward. The gray sword was directly shattered by the chi wall, and the torrent of sword intent from before was also instantly blasted away by the chi wall without a trace. The pressure skyrocketed. The chi wall seemed to want to crush everything, shatter everything, and cover the heaven and earth at an astonishing speed, covering the left and right horizon, shattering the earth, unable to see the top, unable to see the bottom, and unable to see the left and right sides. Su Yun did not know how wide the range of this move was. He only knew that not only was there nowhere to escape to, it was also impossible to defend against it. Perhaps no magic treasure would be able to remain unscathed under such a powerful force, right? Not to mention his physical body. Chapter 1152. If Su Yun knew of the doubts in Sword Ancestor's heart, he would be extremely pleased with himself, because this move was a sword technique that he had created himself, using strength to control the sword. Since the war god was using force to kill his enemies, then wouldn't the endless power around him be used by Su Yun as well? The truth did not disappoint Su Yun. The Lotus Star Sword that had been transferred with power flew out, and as expected, it started to absorb the war god's power. From the frequency of its vibrations, the Lotus Star Sword had already absorbed more power than Su Yun's own. But this was not the end, it was only the beginning. The Lotus Star Sword was like a boat going against the current, continuously moving forward. It absorbed the energy that was coming at it, and as it trembled, it absorbed all of the energy into the sword blade, transforming it into its own energy. Seeing the flying sword, the war god's face was filled with astonishment. He was surprised to discover that the power wall that he had released was slowly weakening as it approached the sword that Su Yun had thrown out. How could this be? The war god was confused, but right at this moment, the strange phenomenon appeared again, and the scenery around him suddenly distorted. The war god was shocked to discover that the figures of Su Yun and Sword Ancestor, who were extremely far away, had mysteriously dimmed down. What was going on? He looked around, feeling very uneasy. Everything was fine, so why was it like this? That's not right. This was that kid's method. The war god thought back to what Su Yun had done after he threw the sword. He didn't do anything. He just kept staring at me. Staring? The war god seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed, "This is illusion technique?" This was an illusion technique. Moreover, it was an incredible illusion technique. Fleeting shadow art. This Su Yun's trump card came from the inheritance given to him by the great demons in the ancient tomb of the True Devil sect. Once the drifting shadow art was used, it would ignore the opponent's strength and directly corrode the opponent's spirit. Normally, with the continuous activation of the drifting shadow art, the opponent would gradually lose sight of Su Yun, and after that, his mind would gradually forget about Su Yun. In the end, the person who was used by the drifting shadow art would no longer know about Su Yun, nor would he understand who he was fighting with. However, although this technique could be used regardless of the opponent cultivation, it could not avoid the opponent's spirit. The stronger the spirit, the less effective the fleeting shadow art would be, and the more difficult it would be. However, no matter how strong a person's spirit was, they would not be able to avoid the invasion of the fleeting shadow art. Even the true divine power would be affected by the fleeting shadow art, and as time passed, the influence would grow stronger and stronger. The martial god realized that he had fallen into Su Yun's illusion technique, but he was powerless to do anything about it. The hatred he had for Su Yun was extremely huge, but it was gradually lessening because the impression he had of Su Yun was constantly weakening. Success. Su Yun, who was still clenching his teeth and using the fleeting shadow art on the war god, was overjoyed when he saw this. This was an opportunity. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he could not defeat the war god at this time, then he would no longer have any leeway to contend against the war god. Su Yun did not dare look at the Lotus Star Sword. The current Lotus Star Sword was no longer under its control. It was trembling in extremely high frequency that even Su Yun could not recognize. And at the same time, the sword body was pressing forward bit by bit, flying extremely slowly. However, as it was flying, it was also constantly absorbing the power of the chi wall released by the war god. It was the chi wall that prevented it from flying, and once the Lotus Star Sword completely passed through the chi wall, its speed would rise to an unprecedented height. In the center of the incomparably vast chi wall, a huge hole was directly opened up by the Lotus Star Sword, and all the chi there was absorbed. It was difficult for it to move, but the thickness of the chi wall was less than 1,000 meters. According to the Lotus Star Sword's speed, it would probably be able to pass through the chi wall in another 30 breaths, and the 31st breath would be the moment the war god fell. Just then, Su Yun suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, his body trembling violently. His expression tensed up. He felt a strong pressure on his body, and his back was constantly being hammered by something. It was the war god's method. No, the war god had already released the chi wall. Why would he still use other methods? Could it be that before the war god used the chi wall, he had intentionally used a hidden technique to prevent himself from escaping? It was extremely possible that this power was only responsible for suppressing Su Yun, but did not have much killing intent. If he wanted to restrain Su Yun, it was definitely enough. But the current Su Yun did not dare to move casually. After activating the shadowy art, if he moved casually, or even if the immortal chi in his body became chaotic, it would cause the activation of the shadowy art to fail. And after losing the restriction of the shadowy art, with the trajectory of the Lotus Star Sword, it was impossible for it to hit the war god. Bang! 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 The blood chi in Su Yun's body was churning. The immortal meridian was like a zither string, constantly trembling. The immortal chi had already started to become chaotic. He was getting more and more exhausted. The current him did not have much strength left. Almost all of his immortal energy was used to activate the shadowy art. Hold on. He had to hold on. Su Yun thought, gritting his teeth. He refused to let go. He was not afraid of pain. After so many years, he had long been immune to pain, but sometimes not being afraid of pain did not mean that he was invincible. His consciousness still existed, and his consciousness would still be in chaos. Right now, he could only rely on his own willpower to forcefully activate the shadowy art. The Lotus Star Sword only had 15 breaths of time left. In another 15 breaths of time, it would be able to directly attack the war god. His teeth were bleeding, and his snow-white eyes were almost incomparably bright. However, his pupils were still shaking, as if they were about to jump out of his sockets. 10 breaths. 9 breaths. 8 breaths. Su Yun used the corner of his eyes to quickly scan the Lotus Star Sword, but the current him, his consciousness was gradually weakening. He gasped for breath, but found that it was getting harder and harder to breathe. The immortal meridian in his body was stretched to its limit, showing signs of breaking at any time. The immortal chi was almost exhausted, and his immortal eyes were also turning red. 5 breaths. For breaths. More and more blood flowed out of Su Yun's mouth, and his face became paler and paler. Was it the limit? He felt his eyelids become heavier than ever before. 3 breaths. 2 breaths. Crash. In that moment of life and death, a burst of sword intent suddenly rippled around Su Yun's body. So. The energy that was surrounding Su Yun was immediately dispersed by the sword intent. This was the Sword Ancestor's move. However, Su Yun did not have the time to look at Sword Ancestor. He suddenly turned his head and stared at the Lotus Star Sword. At this moment, the center of the entire chi wall had been completely pierced through by the Lotus Star Sword. Its sword tip had already passed through the back of the chi wall. 1 breath. Su Yun muttered to himself, and then he instantly closed his eyes and fell down. Rumble, 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 rumble. The Lotus Star Sword was like a god-slaying sword that had broken free from its restraints. It instantly rushed towards the martial god in the distance, bringing with it an intense roar that sounded like that of an ancient demon god. It charged straight into the distance. The entire sky distorted, the ground instantly cracked, and the seemingly towering peak of the martial god was instantly shattered. This Lotus Star Sword that was mixed with all of Su Yun's and the martial god's power at this moment released a dazzling attack that caused even the gods to tremble. When Su Yun closed his eyes, the martial god who was controlled by the fleeting shadow art immediately woke up, but at that moment, everything was over. The Lotus Star Sword was right in front of him. The strong air pressure had already started to squeeze the martial god's body, causing his face to immediately become distorted. His white beard swayed wildly, and then fell off one by one. His strong body also became thin and weak, and not long after, it was completely deformed. He was actually unable to resist this tyrannical pressure. Su Yun fell down. He used his last bit of strength to open a crack in his eyelids and looked at the martial god. The Lotus Star Sword was less than 1,000 meters away from him. Although it was close to 1,000 meters, the Lotus Star Sword's speed was simply too fast. To be able to capture its position was already a miracle, and it was impossible to dodge. The martial god's face changed. His heart almost jumped out of his throat. Hiss at this time. A slender white thread flowed out from the direction of the Lotus Star Sword. Su Yun opened his eyes wide. Looking at the thread, his dark eyes were filled with complexity. It was the Lotus Star Sword's body. Such a powerful impact force had completely exceeded the strength of the Lotus Star Sword. The moment it rushed towards the martial god, the sword's body had already split open, and when it attacked, it was like a meteor that streaked across the sky, consuming itself while bringing hope to others. Boom! There were no surprises. There was no suspense. A huge hole was created in the martial god's chest, and his flesh was sent flying into the distance. It was gradually torn apart, turning into fragments, particles, dust, and finally disappearing. His body trembled a few times, and in less than a breath of time, his entire body was torn into pieces. He died immediately, not even leaving a trace behind. Although the Lotus Star Sword had consumed its sword body, the impact force that was attached to its body did not disappear. Under the push of inertia, they continued to charge towards the martial god. Even the blood was knocked away by the force. In the blink of an eye, nothing remained where the martial god was. Not even his soul could be seen. The martial god was instantly killed. What kind of terrifying attack was this? What kind of powerful attack was this? Even a true god would never be able to release such a powerful destructive method. Sword Ancestor opened his eyes wide. He looked at Su Yun and was unable to say a word for a long time. Is it over? Su Yun stared at the empty space, muttered, and completely fainted. Seeing that, Sword Ancestor, who was in the distance, immediately rushed over and hugged him. It's all over. Sword Ancestor looked into the distance and said in a low voice. Everything had returned to normal. Chapter 1153. After defeating the war god, Sword Ancestor carried Su Yun's body and slowly landed on the ground. At this moment, the entire ground had been shattered, and the so-called martial god sect had also vanished into thin air. When the immortals fought, the mortals suffered. This was the result. The peak of the martial god realm was in a mess, and there was no longer a complete place to be found. The stone that the war god called a strange stone had also fallen and smashed into the ruins. However, it was rather miraculous. Not only was it undamaged, even the area below it that was drawn with the array formation was not damaged at all. Su Yun opened his eyes slightly, looked at the strange stone, and could not help but sigh. The war god was right. Just this point alone was enough to prove that this was indeed a strange stone. Sword Ancestor walked to the front of the strange stone and pressed on it with one hand. With a slight push, circles of strange bright white lines immediately appeared on his palm. These lines spread out like a spider web and quickly wrapped around the strange stone. A moment later, Kacha the strange stone loosened a lot. Seeing that, Sword Ancestor immediately gathered his strength and pushed. Kacha, Kacha, Kacha the strange stone immediately rolled away, pressing down on the broken stones and falling into the distance. The area with the array was also completely exposed to Su Yun and Sword Ancestor's line of sight. This was a formation similar to a lotus flower, but it seemed to be smeared with the blood of an immortal, and the immortal chi inside was extremely mysterious. The Sword Ancestor walked to the center of the array and sat down cross-legged. From afar, the light figure looked extremely similar to the Sword Ancestor, and the moment it appeared, it immediately crashed into the Sword Ancestor's body, causing the Sword Ancestor's body to emit waves of lustrous light. Su Yun stared at it carefully, without blinking. With a flash of light, the aura around Sword Ancestor quickly condensed and became extremely dense. Ooh! Sword Ancestor exhaled heavily. The light around his body immediately became stronger, and at the same time, the wounds on his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His face had also become rosy, and his mental state had reached its peak in a few breaths of time. This kind of thing could simply be called a miracle. Su Yun was a little sluggish. After an unknown period of time, Sword Ancestor slowly opened his eyes, revealing a gentle smile on his face. Not bad, another soul. Looks like it's only a matter of time before my soul completely returns. The Sword Ancestor laughed. At this moment, the way he spoke was much gentler than before. Sword Ancestor, do you feel that I've changed a lot from before? Yes, haha. That is the influence of the soul. Actually, my 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls have taken up quite a bit of my personality. This soul is the benevolence and compassion in my heart. Thus, when I fused with this soul, my personality also changed. The power contained in this soul entered my body, allowing my damaged body to recover. That is why there is such a miraculous change. The sword ancestor laughed. Hearing that, Su Yun nodded, as if he was deep in thought. Su Yun, this strange stone was painstakingly obtained by the war god. Although it lacks my soul as the array source, it does not mean that it cannot be replaced with other things. Such a treasure cannot be wasted. Su Yun, during this period of time, follow me to get magic treasure to replace this array source. Activate the array formation to consume this magic treasure, and then use this treasure to raise your cultivation. Do you understand? Just then, the sword ancestor said, "How can this be? Master Ancestor, you should need this, right?" "I don't need this because my power has not been completely gathered, and it's not of much use to me." The sword ancestor shook his head. Hearing that, Su Yun immediately understood. Although the current sword ancestor's strength was not as strong as before, and was even weaker than the war god, but after gathering his soul, his strength was at the legendary level, and was not something that ordinary immortals could imagine. Such a powerful existence was not something that the war god could compare to. So how could he need this stone to increase his strength? Master Ancestor, let's talk about this later. Today, Su Yun came to find you because he has something to discuss with you. Su Yun threw the strange stone to the side and immediately said to the sword ancestor, "You have something to discuss with me?" The sword ancestor was startled and said, "What is it?" "It's about the evil sword." Su Yun took off the sword sheath and placed it on the ground. Upon hearing the word evil sword, the sword ancestor's face immediately became serious, and his eyes became extremely serious. "What happened to the evil sword?" The sword ancestor said in a low voice. "According to Ling Qingyu, the divine sword barrier around the evil sword has loosened, because I have previously taken a portion of the divine swords from this sword sheath to fight. So, it's not your situation. The divine sword inside can be taken out. There must be other reasons for the evil sword to loosen." The sword ancestor shook his head, then asked curiously, "But the Ling Qingyu you spoke of?" Su Yun did not understand. He looked at the sword ancestor strangely and said, "Master Ancestor, don't you remember? You saved a female sword immortal before. In order to repay you, she attached herself to the sword sheath and has always been following you. Didn't I tell you about her before? Did you?" The sword ancestor thought for a moment, but could not think of anything. Just then, a white light shot out from the sword sheath and directly landed beside Su Yun. The white light transformed into a beautiful and charming lady. The lady's white clothes were as white as snow. Her skin was like sheep fat. Her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. She was extremely beautiful. Seeing the man appear from the sword sheath, the sword ancestor immediately took half a step back and stared at him. "Who is it?" "I am Ling Qingyu," the lady said. Su Yun, who was at the side, was confused. Why did sword ancestor look like he did not know Ling Qingyu? That's not right. Logically speaking, the sword ancestor should have known Ling Qingyu even earlier than him. For people of their level, how could they be forgetful? "Qingyu, what's going on?" Su Yun asked. It should be because the sword ancestor's soul is incomplete and his memories are missing. Ling Qingyu said indifferently without hesitation. That was possible. Su Yun nodded. "Memory loss? Is that so?" The sword ancestor did not seem to believe Ling Qingyu's words. He sized her up, then turned his head and asked Su Yun, "Has this person always been in the sword sheath?" "Yes, Master Ancestor. From a moment this disciple obtained the sword sheath, she was here. The sword elder also knows about her." The sword ancestor scratched his chin and thought for a while, then shook his head and said indifferently, "Now is not the time to talk about these useless things. Since there is a problem with the evil sword, then it must be no small matter. Since no one in this world knows of the existence of the evil sword, then they must be responsible for it. Su Yun, don't waste time. Hurry up." The sword ancestor said. Although he knew the power of the evil sword and understood how dangerous it was for him to do so, he still did not show the slightest bit of fear and still surrounded them. The sword sheath was opened. Light overflowed in all directions, and a circular hole appeared. The sword ancestor glanced at Ling Qingyu, then looked at the hole, and finally walked inside. Crash! Very quickly, the three of them disappeared from the entrance of the sword sheath. After entering the sword sheath, the sword ancestor stood on the stage and stared into the distance, while Su Yun followed behind. When Ling Qingyu flew in, he circled around the two of them, then said, "Do you plan to check on the evil sword seal now? Or do you want to go later? You seem to have a good understanding of the evil sword seal. I've heard you say it before. After I left, I would sometimes go to the sword sheath's world to wander around, so it's only natural that I have some understanding of the evil sword. There are some things that even if you don't tell me, I still know. Is that so?" The sword master rubbed his chin, then said indifferently, "Since you are so familiar with this place, then you can lead the way for us. This place has been in the future for a long time, and I am not very familiar with many places. In addition, there are still some changes in this place, so naturally, you know it better than me." After Su Yun took the sword, the position of the sword discourse arena changed. Ling Qingyu nodded. Without saying a word, she flew forward. Su Yun looked at the sword ancestor in confusion, but still followed. The two of them passed through dozens of sword discourse arenas and flew forward for a full 5 hours before stopping. Su Yun still did not understand how big the sword sheath's world was. Maybe only Ling Qingyu was familiar with this place. As they flew, a large black whirlpool of clouds slowly appeared in their line of sight. This cloud was like a constantly twisting whirlpool. It was extremely black and extremely terrifying, as though it was the bloodline of an evil demon. And in the center of this pitch-black whirlpool of clouds, there was a pitch-black shadow that towered between the heaven and earth. From the shape of the shadow, it seemed to be a sword. The sword body pierced through the center of the whirlpool of clouds, and the sword hilt was extremely long. Its top could not be seen. The sword body was also extremely long, and the tip of the sword could not be seen. There was no longer any sword intent here, nor was there any sword force. The clouds and mist revolved around the gigantic sword image and gently swayed. The scene was exceptionally peaceful and tranquil. The sword ancestor looked at the gigantic and pitch-black figure in the distance, took a deep breath, and said, "It's as if everything is the same as before. Nothing has changed." "Master Ancestor, is this the evil sword?" Su Yun asked. The sword ancestor nodded. "It doesn't look like there's anything special about it." Su Yun looked at the gigantic light figure in the distance and said, "Something special? Su Yun, you can't just look at things on the surface. If you do that, you will never be able to see the true appearance of things." Just then, Ling Qingyu flew over and said indifferently. With that said, she raised her jade-like finger, and with a wave of her finger, a strange and mysterious power spread out from her finger, spreading into the distance. In that moment, the scene in front of Su Yun's eyes immediately distorted. As the scene continued to distort, the true scene of the evil sword appeared in his line of sight. Chapter 1154. The peaceful sword image and the black cloud had long disappeared, and what replaced it was a gigantic black sword body that stood between the heaven and earth, like a pillar piercing into the ground in front of Su Yun. The sword body pierced through the heaven and earth. The clouds and mist floated around the sword body, and the pitch-black gigantic sword body was currently tied with a large number of thick and sturdy chains. The crisscrossing chains were countless. They were tied to the sword body. It was extremely terrifying. Around these chains were countless flying swords. Every single one of them was trembling slightly. They were like stars in the sky, slowly floating around the gigantic pitch-black sword, releasing waves of light sword cries. Seeing this scene, Su Yun was stunned. The sound of the divine swords trembling in the sky was like a mournful roar, causing people's hearts to tremble, and they were extremely shocked. What was even more surprising was that the arrangement of the divine swords that filled the sky seemed to be messy, but it was orderly, and there was a connection between the swords. They seemed to be a whole, each of them playing their own role, but also making up for their own role. Plop! At this time, an extremely loud heartbeat sound rang out in the vast world of the sword sheath. Su Yun was shocked. He looked towards the source of the sound, only to realize that the sound actually came from the gigantic, ominous sword. At this moment, a layer of red light bloomed on the surface of the ominous sword, and on its gigantic sword body, there were a large number of veins floating about. These veins were extremely blood-red, like blood vessels, densely packed all over the sword body, looking extremely terrifying. The surrounding divine swords trembled even more violently. Qingyu, what's going on? Su Yun immediately turned his head and looked at Ling Qingyu. But just as he turned, he realized that Ling Qingyu had long disappeared, and he did not know where she went. Qingyu! Qingyu! He called out twice, but he still could not see Ling Qingyu. Sword Ancestor did not seem to care about Ling Qingyu. At the moment, all of his attention was attracted by the ominous sword in front of him. He flew forward slowly and carefully. As he got closer, the sword will in the surroundings gradually rose. The edges of the divine swords also swayed gently and began to face them. At this moment, the power of the divine swords and the ominous swords is actually equal. The ominous swords have been greatly affected by the strange power within the sword case, and their power has greatly decreased. Due to the number of divine swords and the sword formation, their power has greatly increased. With this increase and decrease, they are able to fight against each other. The scene you saw before is actually just an illusion released by the ominous swords. At this moment, it seems to have fallen into some kind of frenzy. Because of this frenzy, its power has increased slightly, causing this balance to be broken. The formation formed by the divine swords within the sword case is starting to be unable to suppress it. Thus, there is a crisis. Even the slightest imbalance will cause the boundary that seals the ominous swords to break. With that, Sword Ancestor descended and stepped on a pitch-black cloud. Su Yun followed. He lowered his head and looked down at the clouds, and realized that within the clouds, there was an extremely ruthless aura, as though it was contaminated by the evil aura of the ominous sword. Sword Ancestor squatted down, extended his hand, and lightly tapped the ground. A transparent ripple spread out from his finger and quickly spread out in all directions. After a moment, it spread throughout the entire area, directly crashing into the distance. Su Yun did not know how big the ominous sword was, but it was said that the entire sword case just happened to be able to contain it. Su Yun had never been able to imagine what kind of sword it was and what kind of existence it was. But from the looks of it today, he seemed to understand a little. As the ripples spread out, layers of strange energy bodies floated between the countless divine swords. These energy bodies were like a gray mist that floated between the divine swords. Seeing the layer of gray mist, Su Yun's expression tensed up and asked, "Could this be the formation that sealed the ominous sword?" "That's right." Sword Ancestor carefully moved between the gray mist and the divine swords, as though he was inspecting the formation. Every part of the array energy here is formed from a special sword intent that has been painstakingly collected, and every sword is also formed from searching the myriad heavens realm. They have gathered to form the huge sealing sword formation in the sword sheath's world, and they have been resisting the ominous sword for all these years. If not for these divine swords, if not for this formation, if not for the appearance of the ominous sword, I'm afraid that not a single thing in this world would exist. As Sword Ancestor spoke, he carefully inspected everything. Su Yun thought for a moment, then said in a deep voice, "I shouldn't hide it. It's too unfair to let the limitless Sword Lord bear all of this." So what if it's unfair? There are too many injustices in this world. If I don't hide it and ask for help from others, I might be able to get the help of many powerful existences, but it will definitely attract the attention of countless people. There are pros and cons, and the myriad worlds will be in chaos, and all living beings will be plunged into misery and suffering. Sword Ancestor said. Hearing that, Su Yun secretly clenched his fists and did not say anything else. Crash! A cool breeze blew over from afar and landed directly on the grassland. This was the edge of the peak of the martial god realm, and also the front of the distorted space that led to the ultimate martial world. This was a dead end, and everyone knew it. However, many people, in order to enter the peak of the martial god realm, would always think of ways to take the unorthodox path, and in fact, there were quite a few secret paths that led to the peak of the martial god realm. This place was close to the sea, and the ground was not as scorched as the inside. Instead, it was filled with greenery and vitality. A large road that led to the other side twisted in front of him. With a bang sound, something seemed to have fallen here, directly smashing a large hole in the ground. The surrounding seawater rippled. A large pit appeared, and dust flew everywhere. After a moment of silence, a bit of movement came out from within the pit. A blurry and hazy figure floated out from inside. The figure looked around, his face filled with nervousness and pain, as if he was guarding against something. If someone was here, they would definitely be able to tell that this was a soul. A human soul had no weight at all. It could fly with the wind and was even lighter than a leaf. No one's soul would fall to the ground, much less create a large pit. However, this soul could, which was enough to show that this soul was not simple. At this moment, the soul seemed to have sensed something. It suddenly turned its head and looked to the side. He then felt the sound of footsteps that were neither light nor heavy nor slow coming from the grass at the side. What is this? A slightly cold female voice came out. The soul looked towards the source of the voice and saw a young lady wearing a white robe with red edges. She was holding a dark green longsword as she walked out from the grass. It was obvious that she was attracted by the commotion here. When she saw the soul, the young lady's expression immediately became strange. A soul. Could it be that you were the one who caused the commotion just now? Humph! Where did this girl come from? She doesn't know what's good for her, and actually dares to run to the peak of the martial god realm. Quickly scram, or else this old man will take your life. At this moment, the soul suddenly let out a low voice and directly spoke. Who are you? The young girl felt that the soul was not simple and immediately shouted. I'm a martial god. The soul shouted. So it turned out that he was the martial god whose body had been destroyed by Su Yun's sword. At that time, when Su Yun had activated the power of the Imperial Sword, he had used the power of the martial god to forcefully break through his defense and shatter his body. However, although the attack had been successfully launched, the Lotus Star Sword was unable to withstand such a strong attack, and the sword body immediately shattered, causing the attack to only be a simple force. In the nick of time, the martial god had used his own magic treasure to seal his soul, and then used this force to escape 1,000 miles away. Su Yun and Sword Ancestor were not in a good state. They did not catch the martial god's small movements, and even thought that Su Yun's terrifying attack had destroyed his soul. Martial god, the young lady's eyes glistened as she harumphed. A martial god at the peak of the martial god realm is extremely powerful. It's almost like a legend. Even immortals can't stand a chance against one. However, it seems like only your soul is left. Your flesh must have been destroyed by someone. How could you be a martial god in such a miserable state? Don't brag. Girl, you don't believe me? If I don't believe it, there's no need to believe it. I came here to take the martial god as my master. Although I have never seen the martial god before, I know that he is an invincible existence in this world, a mythical existence. However, your soul is indeed extraordinary, and such a soul is extremely rare. Since I have encountered your soul, then let me take it and refine it into a pill to increase my strength. After the young girl finished speaking, she directly walked towards the martial god's soul. Although this soul belonged to the martial god, it had lost its physical body and only had a soul. Forget about the martial god. Even the soul of a true god would be helpless at this moment. Girl, stop! The martial god shouted. What is it? Is there anything else you want to say? The young girl did not stop walking, and it seemed that she had made up her mind. I only have one thing to say. The martial god's soul stared at the young girl and stared into her eyes. I'm listening. She did not stop walking. Although she said that, she did not show much interest in the soul's words. Do you desire power? At this moment, the martial god's soul suddenly asked. However, this single sentence immediately stopped the young girl in her tracks. She frowned and looked at the martial god soul. "What did you say?" "I asked you, do you desire power?" The martial god repeated calmly. "I can see your desire and madness for power in your eyes. Girl, I can't satisfy you. I can give you supreme power, and you can walk further and faster on the path of martial arts. Now, let me tell you, if you don't kill me and help me complete one task, then I will teach you everything I have learned, so that you will immediately have the means to fight against immortals, and you will become the new martial god. What do you think? Are you willing?" His words were filled with endless temptation. Chapter 11:55. After inspecting the array seal once, it took a full 2 days of time. The sword formation was simply too big. The sword ancestor was like a ray of light shuttling back and forth around every sword, floating in between every gray mist, but he had only checked the core area of the sword body. If he wanted to check the periphery, it would be impossible to do it without at least 10 days to half a month. After inspecting the core area, the sword ancestor heaved a sigh of relief and returned. "Master Ancestor, how is it?" Suyin asked. "There's no problem with the sword formation, but the aura of the evil sword is even stronger. The sword formation can't hold on any longer." The sword ancestor said with a serious face. "The aura of the evil sword is stronger? What is going on? Could it be that the aura of the evil sword has been increasing?" Suyin asked in shock. "No." The sword ancestor shook his head. "The aura of the evil sword usually does not increase. It will only increase its aura under one circumstance, and increase its power." "What's going on?" In despair, the sword ancestor read out these 4 words. "Despair?" "Yes, despair." The sword ancestor said in a deep voice, "I do not know much about the evil sword. Its power is too complicated, but as far as I know, one of the main conditions for the evil sword to increase its power is to absorb a large amount of the power of despair. It is currently in the sword sheath, and the sword sheath is following you. Along the way, you will encounter too much despair and will be quietly absorbed by it. In other words, I cause the power of the evil sword to increase greatly? That's not it either. Anyone who gets close to the sword sheath will have the power of despair absorbed by it. And the evil sword does not only rely on the power of despair to increase its power, it also has too many channels. I am unable to explain how it was born, and no one knows what it is made of. In fact, Suyin, letting you carry this sword sheath is actually very unfair to you, after all. Once you carry this sword sheath, you'll have to bear too many things." When the sword ancestor said that, he sighed heavily. "Since it's already like this, we still have to continue walking the rest of the road," Suyin said indifferently. The sword ancestor was silent for a moment, then nodded his head. He turned his head and looked at the gigantic, ominous sword in the center, and said indifferently, "Previously, you said that there was a reason why the lady called Ling Qing you did not want you to take out the swords in the sword sheath. Now that the power of the ominous sword has increased, the 108,000 swords in the sword sheath are already having a hard time resisting the qi of the ominous sword. If you take away these swords, I am afraid the qi will become even stronger. Now, what we need to do is not to repair the sword formation. The sword formation does not need to be repaired. What we need to do is to strengthen the sword formation." "Strengthen? How do we strengthen it?" "Go find a new divine sword and place it in the sword case to suppress the evil sword," the sword ancestor said solemnly. "Since that's the case, I'll send someone to search for it." "Grandmaster, do you have any requirements for the divine sword?" "Are you referring to the requirement for the sword to be placed in the sword sheath?" "Yes. It can be said that the requirements are high, but it can also be said that it's not high. It just needs to satisfy one thing, and that is to have spirituality." "Spirituality?" Suyin was slightly startled. "Yes, it has spirituality. No matter what kind of sword it is, strong or weak, immortal or ordinary, as long as it has spirituality, it can be placed into the sword sheath and inserted into the sword formation to resist the evil sword qi and suppress the evil sword." "How many do you need right now?" "I'm not sure about that either. Naturally, the more the better. It's just that it's not easy to find a sword with spirituality. Any sword with spirituality is related to its birth process. If you really want to find it, you need to run through the entire myriad heavens realm. Su Yun was silent. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. We should still have some time. Su Yun, I remember that when I came to the Martial God Peak, I passed by a place called Tinya Mouth. That place is right on the coast of the Martial God Peak. Rumor has it that there's a Tinya jade in the Tinya Mouth. It is a relic of an immortal who fell. Actually, I have heard of this jade before. It is a legacy precious jade refined by the Cliff Immortal. If you obtain this jade, with the energy inside, I believe, that you'll be able to successfully absorb this strange stone and help your cultivation increase. This strange stone should be able to successfully sublimate, completely mature. Follow me to the Tinya Mouth and retrieve the Tinya jade. Are we going now? What are you waiting for? I'm still injured. Master Ancestor, sigh, as long as you can walk. Most of the spirit cultivators that are active in the Tinya Mouth are only existences of the Spirit Master. You are already a spirit god. What are you afraid of? Sword Ancestor rolled his eyes at Su Yun. Su Yun was rather embarrassed and laughed out loud. What Sword Ancestor said was right. The existence of the spirit god realm, even in the immortal world, was an incredible person. In a place like the ultimate martial world, it was basically a god. Even if it was an injured god, it was definitely not something that mortals could challenge. How do we get out? Follow me, Sword Ancestor said. He immediately leaped into the air. A cloud shot down from the sky. Quickly forming a cloud soared beneath his feet, carrying him forward. From the method of stepping on the clouds, it could be seen that Sword Ancestor's strength had indeed increased by a lot. He did not know what level his strength would reach when all of his 3 souls and 7 spirits were gathered. Peak of Spirit God? Maybe it would be even higher? Su Yun took a deep breath, leaped into the air, and chased after him. Due to the battle with the Martial God, the Martial God Summit was already in a mess. Other than the border area, which had yet to be affected, the rest of the place was practically smashed into smithereens. Sword Ancestor came to the southwest corner, where there was a small hill near the sea. The Martial God Summit was completely shielded by the distorted space. If one did not use spatial magic to send it out, and directly flew out, they would immediately be torn apart by the distorted space. Sword Ancestor flew to the top of the small hill and stared at the distorted sea in the distance. Suddenly, he took a deep breath, raised his right hand, and with a low shout, a sword chi burst out from his palm, fiercely slashing towards the distorted space. Crash! The sword force was like a basin of water that was poured out, directly pouring onto that area, causing that area of space to shake violently. A moment later, the entire area started to twist again, and after 10 breaths of time, the area actually returned to its original state. Seeing that, Su Yun's eyes immediately widened. Sword Ancestor raised his hand and said indifferently, "This sword is called the Spatial Sword Slash. It forcefully converts the immortal energy into spatial energy, and then fuses it with the sword chi, finds the source of its distortion, and slashes it into pieces. The spatial distortion in this area is relatively weak, so it can be easily cut open." Spatial Sword Slash? Can immortal force be converted into spatial energy? This will require you to have a sufficient understanding of spatial energy. Everything in this world is actually interconnected, even energy. The so-called wind energy, fire energy, water energy, and even earth energy are all the same thing. This is the reason why all things reinforce and subdue each other. Su Yun, you still have a lot of things to learn. The limitless sword art is just a type of sword technique. It cannot become your everything. Sword Ancestor tilted his head and said seriously. Su Yun nodded. The two of them directly passed through the area and leaped over the sea, flying towards the ultimate martial world. There was one thing Sword Ancestor said that was very true. Everything in this world was indeed connected, and there was nothing that was unique to it. Even those so-called existences that jumped out of the 3 realms and were not part of the 5 elements were not like that. The speed of the two of them was extremely astonishing. The Sword Ancestor had gathered another soul, and his strength had recovered a lot. Although Su Yun was injured, he had recovered a lot, and in less than half a day, the two of them had crossed the sea and arrived at the other side. At the moment, there were many spirit cultivators on the shore of the ultimate martial world. Seeing the two of them flying over, all of them looked over and exclaimed in surprise. The two of them ignored him. Sword Ancestor looked ahead and said after a while, Tinyako should be not far from here. Let's hurry over. Yes. After passing through a small spirit cultivator town on the coast, there was a vast plain. At the end of the plain were two mountains that towered into the clouds. The mountains were filled with green trees, and in the middle of the mountains, there was a low-lying valley entrance, which was said to be the mouth of the heavens. It was said that nearly 1,000 years ago, an immortal had fallen and left behind an item called the Tinya Jade. Whoever obtained this jade would be able to ascend to the heavens in one step. So this place was renamed the mouth of the heavens. Every year, countless spirit cultivator would enter the mouth of the valley to search for the Tinya Jade. Some people returned empty-handed. Some people met with fierce beasts and lost their lives. And some people said that the Tinya Jade had been taken away, but no matter who it was, no one had truly brought the Tinya Jade out. It was like a mystery. Perhaps it was in the mouth of the heavens, or perhaps it had already disappeared into thin air. How do you find it? When Suyun finished listening to Sword Ancestor's introduction to the Tinya Jade, he immediately asked, "Sense it?" Sword Ancestor's face was relaxed. He laughed. It is naturally extremely difficult for Spirit Cultivator to find the Tinya Jade, but we are different. We all have the cultivation of Spirit Profound Immortal. The profound chi in our bodies is already transformed into immortal chi, and with regards to immortal chi, we are much more sensitive than Spirit Cultivator. The Tinya Jade is a treasure refined by an immortal. It contains an extremely large amount of immortal power. It is extremely easy for us to sense it. How can we not find it? So that's how it is. Then, as long as we walk around the mouth of the heavens, we will be able to do it? Basically, that's it. All right, then, let's split up. Suyun sighed. I'll go left, you go right. Call me when you find it. All right. If he used his immortal power to shout, everyone inside and outside of the mouth of the heavens could hear him. After making his decision, Suyun immediately rushed into the mouth of the heavens. The mouth of the valley was extremely deep, and the inside was surrounded by mountains. One could easily smell the chaotic, profound chi in the air, and although the birds were chirping and the fragrance of incense, killing and violence still existed. Suyun calmed his mind, activated his chi, and flew high up into the air, rushing towards the right. Along the way, he closed his eyes and quietly sensed everything around him, capturing all the chi around him. Chapter 11:56. How many people were below? How many trees? How many stones were on the ground? How many creatures were in the forest? Suyun could accurately capture them all. However, there was not a single trace of the Tinya Jade in this area. However, to Suyun and Sword Ancestor, it was still an ordinary valley entrance. The fierce beasts, miasma, and the traps left behind by the spirit cultivator in the past were all just decorations to him. These things could not even break the Imperial battle robe, much less injure his body. Heaven's Edge's mouth wasn't big, and in a little more than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, he finished looking around. Other than a few places where people were fighting, he didn't see any movement of immortal chi. It should be in the direction of the Sword Ancestor. Let's go take a look. Suyun muttered to himself. He changed his direction and flew towards the left side of the entrance. Whoosh! Just then, a few chi suddenly flew over from below and directly struck Suyun's body. In Suyun's eyes, these few auras were soft and powerless, but according to the average cultivation of the local spirit cultivator, these few attacks were filled with killing intent and were extremely fierce. Patter! A few auras struck his body, but they did not break through his defense. The Imperial battle robe directly blocked the profound chi attacks. Suyun frowned. He looked down, only to see a few men and women hiding behind a big tree. The attacks were released by them. What? My profound chi actually has no effect on him? How is this possible? That guy must be carrying an incredible treasure on him. What kind of treasure could be so powerful? The few of them looked at Suyun in shock. All of their faces were filled with astonishment, and none of them recovered from their shock for a long time. Who could be immune to their attacks? Even if he didn't die from this sneak attack, he should at least be injured, right? Su Yun glanced at these fellows. He did not understand why they wanted to attack him, but he was too lazy to care about them. People of this realm did not want to bother too much with these ordinary spirit cultivator, so he immediately turned around and continued to fly forward. He actually ran away? These fellows thought that Su Yun would descend and fight with them, but who would have thought that Su Yun would only glance at them and immediately leave? This was truly out of everyone's expectations. Why did he run away? Are you looking down on us? There's definitely something wrong. Hey, do you think he has the Tinya Jade? Otherwise, why would he be completely unharmed after taking Big Brother's attack? There must be. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a hurry to leave. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. Then what should we do? What should we do? Chase after them, since everyone plans to kill and rob. Then be more ruthless. Heaven's Edge is a place without anyone's jurisdiction. Killing people here is not against the law, and no one will know that you did it. Don't you all want cultivation coins? Want good treasures and materials to cultivate? Now is your chance. A man with an extremely sinister face stared at the direction Su Yun left in and said coldly. Hearing this, the expressions of these people immediately turned cold. Without saying a word, they were about to give chase. They did not have any enmity with Su Yun. The reason why they attacked him was purely to kill and rob. Hey, are you guys really planning to kill me? At this moment, a lazy voice came from the side. Everyone's nerves twitched as they stopped in their tracks and looked towards the source of the voice. They saw that the man in the black cloak who was flying in the air had unknowingly appeared behind them. You! Everyone's eyes widened, not daring to believe what they were seeing. A sense of fear enveloped the hearts of these people. When did this guy get behind us? The person who was called Big Brother was trembling all over, and the hand holding the blade was also a little weak. Big Brother, what should we do now? The person beside him asked in a low voice. Don't worry. The man called Big Brother said in a low voice. This guy was able to approach us without us noticing. I'm afraid his strength is not simple. Although we have more people, we might not be his match. It's better to give up on this person. Where there's life, there's hope. It's better to be safe than sorry. Give up? But he might have the Tinya Jade on him. If the legendary Tinya Jade is really that miraculous, then it's even more impossible for us to defeat this guy. Don't be impulsive. Sometimes you have to have it, and sometimes you don't have to force it. It's best if you can get the Tinya Jade, but it's fine if you can't. Big Brother, you are open-minded, but we are different. What else do you want? Kill this person and take the Tinya Jade. If you don't want to listen to me, you can do it alone. Big Brother, if you still want to follow me, then shut up. The man called Big Brother bellowed, then raised his head and looked at Su Yun. Who are you? Don't worry about who I am. Actually, I didn't plan to bother with you guys from the start, but since you guys want to chase after me and kill me, then I might as well send you guys on your way. I don't have much patience, and my temper isn't very good either. I won't let anyone who threatens me go. Su Yun naturally heard the words of these people. He could not be bothered to waste any more time. After he finished speaking, he directly walked towards them. The man called Big Brother was not an idiot. Hearing Su Yun's words, he instantly understood that Su Yun had heard everything he said. If his hearing was that amazing, then Su Yun would have probably heard the conversation between him and his companions. Such a terrifying technique. What realm and what level of cultivation did the profound spirit cultivator have? You actually know everything. Who the hell are you? Do you have Tinya Jade on you? The Big Brother asked in fear. No. Then you must have other treasures on you. My attack is not something an ordinary person can ignore. I'm not an ordinary person. Su Yun's expression turned cold. He casually waved his hand, and a few strands of immortal chi flew out from his palm, directly striking towards these fellows. In an instant, the people in the forest immediately froze, as if they were statues, and within their bodies, a large amount of Xian Qi was spurting out. A moment later, blood sprayed everywhere, and the bodies of these people were torn apart, as if they were rocks that had been smashed by a fist. One by one, they were turned into chunks of flesh that collapsed, and their souls directly spilled out. Su Yun swept his gaze across the screaming souls, but did not kill them all. Their bodies had been destroyed, So even if they revived, they would only be ordinary mortals and would no longer have any strength. Originally, Su Yin did not plan to make a move, but the other party planned to kill and steal, so there was no need for Su Yin to be lenient. Chirp! Just at this moment, a ray of snow-white light suddenly shot out from the southwest direction of the heaven's edge. This light shot into the sky and into the clouds. It could be seen from far away, and when this light shot out, a mysterious celestial spiritual energy also came with it. Su Yun's entire body trembled. This aura, Tinya Jade? He anxiously swept his gaze in that direction, only to realize that he had searched that place before. Wasn't there no Tinya Jade's aura? Why did such a change happen now? He was extremely puzzled, but he still rushed over. When he got close to the Tinya Jade, a person quickly flew over from afar. It was Sword Ancestor. Other than that, a large number of spirit cultivators from all directions were also attracted by the change in the Tinya Jade. Did you use immortal power just now? Sword Ancestor glanced at the place that was glowing with light and asked Su Yin. I just killed a few boring people, Su Yin said. After Sword Ancestor heard that, he stared at Tinya Jade, and after a moment of silence, he said, Sure enough. What's wrong? Tinya Jade, you actually found it by chance. I found it? That's right, you found it because this change was caused by you, Sword Ancestor said. Su Yin was confused. What does this have to do with me? You used immortal chi to kill people, and when the immortal chi you released was stained with blood, it would stimulate the enchantment on the Tinya Jade that was buried in the mouth of the Tinya Jade, causing a change and exposing the Tinya Jade. Is that so? This is most likely what the immortal did before he died. What's the purpose of doing this? Let the Tinya Jade return to the immortal court. Why is it related to the immortal court again? The more Su Yin listened, the more confused he became. However, Sword Ancestor's next words made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Immortals cannot casually start a massacre in the Myriad Heavens realm, because a powerful force can allow them to destroy the balance and order of any realm, hindering the normal development of this realm. So the Immortal Court has a rule that they are constantly monitoring the various realms. If such a thing happens in any place, the Immortal Court will definitely send people over, and if my guess is correct, the dead immortal might have other methods to inform the Immortal Court to rush here. Perhaps the people from the Immortal Court are already on their way. Sword Ancestor's voice was heavy. At this critical juncture, if they were to provoke the Immortal Court again, it would not be a good thing. Let's hurry up and go. Yes, take the Tinya Jade and return to the peak of the martial god realm, Sword Ancestor said, and then headed toward the place that was glowing. Su Yin did not want to face the people of the Immortal Court at all. Furthermore, he was currently injured. It was easy for him to deal with the people of the ultimate martial world, but if he were to deal with a powerful immortal, then the situation would be different. The place that was glowing was a large rock covered in moss. The large rock had already been split into two, and the light was coming out from the crack. Sword Ancestor carefully took out a light green jade stone and held it in his hand. He nodded at Su Yin, then leaped and flew away. Su Yin immediately followed. After obtaining the Tinya Jade, the next step was to use the strange stone left behind by the martial god. He did not know what that strange stone was, and what kind of miraculous effect it would have after digesting it. Su Yun's heart was filled with inexplicable anticipation. The reason why the martial god had entered the peak of the martial god realm for so long was because of this stone. Chapter 11:57. The Tinya Jade was placed into the array origin by the Sword Ancestor, and the originally dim array immediately released a bright red light. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately walked over and sat cross-legged in front of the strange stone. The peak of the martial god realm is the place closest to the sun and the moon. This strange stone has absorbed a large amount of the essence of the sun and the moon, and the spiritual aura of the heavens and the earth within it is extremely abundant. This time, we have obtained the fruits of the martial god realm. This strange stone has just matured, and obtaining this item can be considered as a great fortune. The Sword Ancestor looked at the strange stone and sighed. The martial god spent a lot of effort to prepare this item for his advancement, but he didn't want me to snatch it away. If he was here, I believe he wouldn't let me go. Suyun laughed. Let you go. The sword ancestor thought for a moment, then said solemnly, Suyun, actually there's something I have to remind you of. You have to be careful yourself. What is it? It's possible that the martial god isn't dead. Not dead? Suyun was stunned. His attack was so terrifying, but the martial god actually did not die. How was that possible? Although your attack was powerful, you cannot underestimate the martial god's methods. According to common sense, no one should have survived that attack. But whenever a supreme expert falls, there will be a strange phenomenon in the world, but that day there was no strange phenomenon. So I feel that the martial god did not die, and his soul was scattered. So there should be some traces left behind, but at that time there were no traces, so I'm worried that the martial god's soul might have escaped. There's nothing I can do about it. Back then, I was powerless to chase after him, not to mention that the martial god only has his soul left and no longer has his body. Let's not talk about whether or not he can survive in his soul state. Even if he survives and revives with the help of his body, his powerful cultivation will no longer exist. He is just an ordinary mortal, so there is no need to worry. Suyun said, although what you said is right, it's better to be safe than sorry. Don't follow in my footsteps. Yes, Master Ancestor. Suyun nodded. At this time, the Tianya jade at the source of the formation suddenly ejected a circle of powerful spatial aura. This aura was like a fishing net, directly wrapping the strange stone. Colorful and dazzling patterns immediately appeared on the strange stone. These patterns were all beast patterns. All kinds of fierce beasts and spirit beasts covered the whole strange stone. Each pattern was different. At a glance, there were probably tens of thousands of patterns. Heavenly beast stone? So this is a heavenly beast stone. Sword Ancestor seemed to have noticed something. His face immediately revealed a surprised expression, and he shouted out loud, Heavenly beast stone? What's that? Suyun asked in confusion. It's a strange stone refined according to the ancient books of the primordial age. The sword master circled around the mystical stone, carefully looking at the beast mark on it as he circled it. You have to know that there are thousands of methods in this world, and many things that do not seem to have any offensive capabilities under the refinement of people can often display incredible power. In fact, this power is not given by people, but by the refiners themselves. They dug out the power contained within these things, which is why they have such an effect. There are countless spirit beasts, fierce beasts, demon beasts, magical beasts, and even divine beasts on this strange stone. In fact, each of these patterns is added by the soul of a living creature. For example, this three-horned sheep, it was not carved by humans, but by someone who killed the three-horned sheep and then imprinted its soul on this strange stone, which formed this pattern. And this beast imprint contains all of the three-horned sheep's power. Sword Ancestor said seriously. Hearing that, Suyun sighed. There's actually such a magical thing. These beast souls have already fused with the strange stone. If they are not absorbed, they will be absorbed by others. The power contained in so many beast souls is definitely limitless. The reason why the war god placed this strange stone here is also because the essence of the sun and moon, the spirit of the world, can completely release the potential of these beast souls. And now that the energy of this strange stone has reached its peak, it is a good time to absorb it. As Sword Ancestor spoke, his eyes were still staring at the strange stone. He never thought that this stone would be so powerful. With so many beast marks, it meant that so many fierce beasts, spirit beasts, magical beasts, and so on had all been killed and their souls sealed within. How much time and energy would it take to infuse all of these tens of millions of beast souls into it? What? Just then, Sword Ancestor suddenly cried out in alarm. Suyun was startled for a moment and immediately ran over, only to see Sword Ancestor staring intently at a beast mark on the strange stone, his eyes almost unblinking, his expression especially focused. However, from his eyes, it could be seen that the beast mark he was looking at was not simple. Suyun looked over and realized that the beast mark Sword Ancestor was paying attention to was actually a slender dragon mark. The dragon had a strange appearance, It had 4 claws, but no horns. If one looked carefully, they would be able to see that its horns were broken. But on its back, there was a pair of extremely exaggerated, huge wings. The wings were even bigger than its body. The dragon's head was spiritual. Its body was strong and powerful, and its entire body was filled with a sense of madness. What is this? Suyin asked, puzzled. It looked like a dragon, but it didn't look like a dragon. This was the first time Su Yun had seen such a creature. Traitorous dragon, Sword Ancestor said in a deep voice. It's a traitor to the divine dragon clan. Traitorous dragon? You have not come into contact with the higher levels of the immortal world, so you do not know much about the dragon clan. In fact, at the top of the immortal world, there are many unbelievably powerful races. The immortal sects that you have come into contact with are not all of the immortal world. The immortal world is so big that even the immortal court is unable to accurately judge it, let alone you and me. Dragon clan? Suyin frowned. His mind started to think. Then he said, I have seen quite a few divine dragons, and some of them are dragon souls. Although they were very powerful when I first came into contact with them, but now it seems like they're nothing. Back then in the Wanhua realm, Suyin had seen many treasures with dragon souls. Dragons are also divided into high and low ranks. Just like humans, mortals and immortals are completely different concepts, and dragons and divine dragons are two different things. The dragons of that race are almost all immortal level, and it is not an exaggeration to call them immortal dragons. But ordinary immortal dragons are not something that immortals can provoke. What is this traitorous dragon? Immortal dragon. Then there's nothing special about it, right? The problem is that it doesn't do anything special. The Sword Ancestor pointed at the huge wings on the dragon's body and said in a deep voice, It is said that the traitorous dragon had its eyes on the divine eagle race's clan treasure, the wind divine feather. So it snuck into the divine eagle race and stole the feather. After the matter was exposed, it was chased all the way by the divine eagle race, and the traitorous dragon fled to the divine dragon race. Although the divine eagle race is extremely powerful, it is not their match at all. The traitorous dragon thought that the divine eagle race would retreat in the face of difficulties and give up, but who would have thought that the divine dragon race actually planned to directly hand the traitorous dragon over to the divine eagle race to be dealt with? Actually, whether it is public or private, I think that the divine dragon race did not do anything wrong, but the traitorous dragon was too radical. It immediately planned to escape with the wind divine feather. The divine dragon race and the divine eagle race chased after it, but they were unable to capture it, so the traitorous dragon was naturally expelled from the clan by the divine dragon race. The traitorous dragon's heart was filled with resentment. So it broke off all the dragon horns on its head and swore that it would definitely take revenge in the future and completely eradicate the divine dragon race and the divine eagle race. To be able to escape from the hands of the divine eagle clan and the divine dragon clan, it can be seen that the strength of the traitorous dragon is not simple. However, who killed it? The martial god? It's hard to say. If the traitorous dragon is injured, the martial god might succeed. If the traitorous dragon is at its peak, even 10 martial gods would not be able to take down the traitorous dragon. The traitorous dragon is being chased by the two clans, and there will be many battles along the way. It's also possible. Suyin nodded his head. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, Sword Ancestor, since you said that the divine dragon clan and the divine eagle clan are so powerful and belong to the higher echelons of the immortal world, then can the immortal court control them? Yes, the Sword Ancestor said without hesitation. Su Yun was startled. The immortal court is huge. Do not underestimate this existence that represents the laws of the immortal world. The immortal court that you have seen is just the tip of the iceberg. All right, Su Yun, go and make your preparations. I will take a look at this strange stone. Maybe there are some other incredible beast imprints. After today, you can start absorbing them. What's the use of absorbing this strange stone? It will greatly increase your strength, and then it will allow you to have the ability to transform into anything. Myriad transformations? Could it be? That's right. The Sword Ancestor pointed to the beast imprint and said, Whatever beast imprint there is, you can transform into their appearance and possess all of their abilities when they were alive. For example, the traitorous dragon. You can also transform and possess all of its powers. How is this ability? How should I describe it? The people of the mortal realm like to use the word ox to describe it. Then it's awesome. Su Yun jumped up, his eyes lit up as he stared at the strange stone. Myriad transformations? How could this be? If he absorbed this strange stone, wouldn't he be able to go anywhere he wanted in the heavens and the earth? Although he could use the immortal chi to transform into some simple animals and plants, that was only a basic trick, an illusion technique, and was useless. But this was different. This was a real transformation, and it even had an ability. It did not belong to the category of illusion techniques, and no one would be able to see through it. Just then, Sword Ancestor suddenly cried out in alarm again. Su Yun immediately looked over, only to see Sword Ancestor's eyes wide open, his face full of shock. He raised his hand and looked at the beast imprint on the strange stone with a trembling hand, and muttered, "Tao Tai." Chapter 1158. Tao Tai. Su Yun was a little confused and said, "I've heard of this before. It seems to be the son of some dragon king. He can eat a lot, right? Where did you hear that from?" "I heard it when I was young." Su Yun thought and said. These were all things that he had heard of when he was training in the Su family. But to them, these things were all things that only existed in legends, and many people thought that they were illusory and illusory. Even in the ultimate martial world, it was the same. Half of these things are right, and the other half are wrong. The Sword Ancestor said, "There really is such a thing? Yes, isn't this it?" The Sword Ancestor pointed to the beast mark on the strange stone and said, "This killer's physique was not like that of a divine dragon. It had the body of a goat, the face of a human, the teeth of a tiger, and the claws of a human. It had 6 eyes on its face and a pair of eyes under its armpits. It was especially terrifying. Its entire body was covered in pitch-black scales, and it looked like a lion. What caught people's attention was its bloody mouth, which was filled with the teeth of a tiger. When it opened its mouth, it was almost as big as its body, as if it could swallow everything. It can also be considered a dragon, but it belongs to a different type of dragon, and is completely different from the traitorous dragon you saw before. It is the son of the 3rd Dragon Clan leader of the Divine Dragon Clan, and after careful consideration, it can be considered the older generation of the Divine Dragon Clan, but is greedy by nature and extremely delicious. It can eat anything, and it can never be full. When it was born, the Dragon Clan was in chaos, and the people of the Divine Dragon Clan kept helping it find food, but no matter how many things they found, they were unable to fill its stomach. And after eating for a full 3,000 years, the Divine Dragon Clan seemed to be recognized as the Gold Lord, and it was said that their celestial coins could buy half of the immortal world, but it was still unable to satisfy the Tao Tai. And it was said that in the 3,000 years that the Tao Tai was in the Dragon Clan, the Dragon Clan had used up half of the Dragon Clan's financial resources. Who would have thought that this indulgence would cause a big problem? The Tao Tai is not picky about food. It will eat anything that can be eaten. From immortals to mortals, it will eat everything. It is said that in the 3rd year that it left the Dragon Clan, it completely swallowed an entire realm. Ate an entire realm? Su Yun had never heard of such a shocking matter. This plane doesn't exist at all. 3,000 meters of the earth has been eaten away, revealing the magma. Not a single plant, stone, mountain, or river is left in this plane. Because of this, the Immortal Court was furious. They sent their elite soldiers to capture Tao Tai. Who would have thought that the Tao Tai was so powerful that he could even eat all the people of the Immortal Court that were sent out, not even spitting out their bones? This time, the Celestial Court was enraged. This time, they sent out powerful existences who had mastered true divine abilities to suppress it in the 9 lakes of heaven. Because the Tao Ye's body contained too many things, it had already become immortal. As long as there was the slightest bit of damage on its body, it would instantly recover, so even the Celestial Court could not kill it. But I don't know why, the Tao Ye's beast mark is actually on this strange stone. What kind of place is the Sky 9 Lakes? Could a martial god enter it? Is it possible for him to kill Tao Tai? Su-yin quickly asked. At this moment, the shock in his heart was extremely intense. Previously, he did not know Tao Tai, so he could not understand Sword Ancestor's surprise, but after hearing Sword Ancestor's words, Su-yin immediately understood. Impossible. It's impossible, absolutely impossible. Sword Ancestor shook his head continuously and said, it's impossible for a martial god to harm Tao Tai in the slightest. Even the celestial court was helpless against it. How could a martial god kill Tao Tai? Tao Tai was definitely not killed by the martial god. After thinking about it, it can only be that he picked up Tao Tai's corpse. Then how did Tao Tai die? I don't know. It's really hard to imagine that there's an existence in this world that can kill Tao Tai. Even if it was me at my peak, I wouldn't be able to kill it. Sword Ancestor said solemnly. Seeing Sword Ancestor like this, Su-yin could not help but feel a myriad of emotions in his heart. If even Sword Ancestor said that, then could it be that the person who killed Tao Tai was countless times stronger than Sword Ancestor? It seemed like his understanding of this world was still too little. Su-yin, obtaining this Tao Tai beast mark is a great fortune. Sword Ancestor sighed. I believe that neither of them would have thought that they would be able to obtain such an opportunity. Sword Ancestor looked at it for a while longer and discovered a few incredible beast marks, but they could not compare to the rebellious dragon and Tao Tai. Although he was a little happy, it was not as intense as before. When Sword Ancestor finished looking at all the beast marks, the night sky above the peak of the martial god realm had already arrived. 10 gigantic moons hung in the sky, illuminating the peak of the martial god realm as if it was daytime. The beast seal on the strange stone released a bright light. Seeing that, Su-yin immediately sat cross-legged on the array origin, closed his eyes and meditated, quietly comprehending. The strange stone suddenly shook. Following that, a large number of cracks appeared on its surface. The cracks first spread from the center, then gradually spread, covering the entire stone, and the cracks continued to increase. At first, it was like a few ropes, then it was like a net, and in the end, it was like a round ball of fur. Although there were many cracks, the beastmar pattern on it was still intact. At this moment, they began to move one by one. They ran forward, they soared forward, they came to life. The roars of millions of fierce beasts came out from the strange stone. The sound converged into an uncontrollable and powerful force, directly entering Su-yun's ears, striking his soul. Su-yun's face was dripping with sweat. All the bones in his body felt as if someone was pinching him. It was extremely uncomfortable, and his heart was beating faster at this time, as if there was a sound in his throat that wanted to rush out. Finally! He couldn't hold it in any longer. He opened his mouth and shouted. The sound of his voice piercing through the air spread in all directions. Just as he shouted, the strange stone immediately turned into sand and directly injected into Su-yun's body. The sand that the strange stone turned into was like a broad road that led to his body, and the tens of thousands of beast seal followed the road and rushed toward Su-yun. Crash! The first beast seal drilled into Su-yun's body. Su-yun's entire body trembled. His face turned pale, as though he was in pain. But the second one followed. The third one. The fourth one. The fifth one, the 10,000th. The beast mark was like a flood. It was impossible to resist. At this moment, Su-yun seemed to have experienced the most painful and torturous moment of his life. Countless beast marks crazily drilled into his body, tearing apart his flesh and bones, striking straight at his soul. He discovered that his soul was about to be imprinted with these beast marks. That kind of heart-wrenching pain was not something an ordinary person could endure. However, he clenched his teeth and silently endured it. The sword master stood at the side, quietly watching this miraculous scene. The light of the 10 moons in the sky hid him at the same time. The wind danced around him, and the black clouds swirled around him. The strange changes seemed to be hinting at something. Su-yin could no longer remain calm. When the ordinary beast mark entered his body, he suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were bright as he looked forward, and the light that shot out from his eyes seemed to be able to shatter a boulder. He gasped for breath with all his might. He could no longer sit still and immediately stood up. He swayed around and roared continuously. The beast mark has begun to fuse with your soul. You have to endure it. Every beast mark is an incomparably precious existence. You cannot waste it. Su-Yun, I know that you are in pain. Actually, I knew it from the beginning, but I did not tell you because I understand you, and I also understand that this pain is nothing to you. You have a lot of things on your shoulders. You have to endure it. Do you understand? Sword Ancestor said in a deep voice, his eyes staring intently at Su-Yun. At this moment, Su-Yun finally understood why Sword Ancestor was unwilling to absorb the strange stone. Not to mention whether he wanted it or not. Even if he wanted it, he would not be able to absorb it because if his soul was incomplete, he would not be able to absorb it. The place where the strange stone was absorbed was not the human body, but the human soul. This strange scene continued for about 5 hours before it slowly stopped. When the last beast mark entered Su-Yun's body, Su-Yun could no longer stand, and with a plop, he fell to the ground, but he did not faint and was instead gasping for breath. The imperial battle robe on his body seemed to have been affected as well, becoming light and dim, even somewhat transparent. One could see that the skin all over his body had a grayish-red color, but this color was still changing slightly, and from time to time, traces of beast marks would appear on some parts of his body. Su-Yun, are you all right? Sword Ancestor asked carefully. Su-Yun tried his best to raise his head and shouted a few times, but was unable to make sound. Sword Ancestor was startled and went over. Won't die. Vaguely, he seemed to be able to hear these words. It's good that you're not dead. Sword Ancestor heaved a sigh of relief. He could not be bothered with Su-Yun and immediately found a piece of rock to sit on. Su-Yun wanted to get up, but Sword Ancestor immediately shouted, Sai, don't move, just lie down like this, Su-Yun. You should keep any strength you have. Although the beast mark has completely entered your body, it will still take time to digest it. How long will it take? About 10 days. Don't worry, although it has been more than 10 days. During this period of time, your pain has slowly decreased. Your current body function should be completely different from before the current you. The power in your body will automatically transform to digest the power of the beast mark. In 5 to 6 days, the power of the beast mark will be almost there. You will be able to recover a little strength, although it has not been completely digested, but it is enough for you to move. You can just crawl properly for now. Sword Ancestor said seriously. Hearing that, Su-Yun really wanted to jump up and punch Sword Ancestor. If he could get up. Chapter 1159. Inside the Immortal Seeking Sect. Most of the sect disciples were called over by Xiang Xiangyang and gathered in the empty field. The round demon stood at the side and watched quietly, while Faceless and Su Luluo stood at the front, as though they were counting the number of people. As for the people from the mortal court, they lined up in a row and stared at them. There were even more immortals rushing over. The empty field was extremely large and could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. However, it felt a little crowded at the moment. When did the Immortal Seeking Sect become so powerful? A veiled female Immortal Court member looked at the densely packed crowd and asked with a frown, What's wrong with that? It's just that there are a lot of people. In the end, a half-immortal sect is still a half-immortal sect. It's still the same as before. A man with hair that reached past his ears snorted and said with a face full of disdain, You can't say that. The current Immortal Seeking Sect is indeed different from the half-immortal sect that people were talking about back then. He stared at the people of the Immortal Seeking Sect and said in a low voice, The number of people here is not only astonishing, but more importantly, their strength. Look, more than half of the people here are already in the Spirit Immortal realm, and those who have yet to enter the Spirit Immortal realm are at the peak of the Spirit Sage realm. These people are just ordinary disciples of the Immortal Seeking Sect and are at the bottom level of the sect. I think everyone should know to have this kind of strength. I believe that only the people of the middle-sized sects can have this kind of strength, right? And there are so many of them. Furthermore, the number of experts among them is simply uncountable. I have roughly looked at the 5th stage of the Spirit Profound Immortal Realm, and there are at least 10,000 of them, and the existences above them are even more difficult to calculate. This kind of immortal-seeking sect does not belong to the category of a half-immortal sect. As the leader's words fell, all the people from the immortal court fell silent. Look at the masked man standing at the front. At this time, the leader spoke again. Hearing this, everyone looked over. Do you see the expressionless guy standing beside the young girl? Yes, Captain. Is there anything special about this person? Can you see his appearance clearly? How can I see him wearing a mask? Do you know his strength? I don't know. He should be wearing some kind of shielding magic treasure. How could I not know if he's wearing a Dharma treasure? The leader snorted and said in a deep voice, the reason you can't see through this guy's strength is not because he's wearing a magical treasure, but because his own strength is extremely powerful, surpassing yours. You just can't see through him. Powerful? Could he be close to the spirit god? Everyone was shocked. Spirit god? Even if it's close, don't you think it's strange to place it in a half-immortal sect? The leader's voice became deeper, and his face became more serious. Moreover, this guy doesn't seem to be the person in charge of the immortal-seeking sect. He doesn't even have an elder's token. At best, he is just a protector. With such a person as a protector, what kind of means does the new sect master have? As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell into deep contemplation after an unknown period of time. Captain, why did the immortal-seeking sect's strength suddenly increase so much for no reason? There must be something fishy going on. Do you think that the immortal-seeking sect has something to do with the Immortal Pond incident? At this moment, the female immortal who was masked came over and whispered. Although it's possible, it's not very likely. The current immortal-seeking sect's strength has indeed increased greatly, but it's not strong enough to fight against the 4th and 3rd level envoys. Even if we bring everyone here, it won't be enough for Master Zun Li and the others to warm up. The leader said, then, since it's not them, why are we still investigating? It's not them? I didn't say that. I just said that the possibility is not high. No matter what, we still have to investigate. Today, not only do we have to investigate these people, when the sect master returns, even the sect master has to be investigated. Why did you choose the immortal-seeking sect? The existence that killed Master Zun Li fled to this area, and this place is under the jurisdiction of the immortal-seeking sect. The envoy is powerful. Why didn't he directly lock onto that person's identity? How can it be easy to peek into fate? It requires extremely harsh conditions. It's already good enough to lock onto that person's whereabouts, but it's extremely difficult to find out that person's identity. Do you think it's a small trick? So easy? Yes, Captain. All right, let's cut the crap. Most of their people are already here. Get ready and begin the investigation. The leader let out a sigh and said calmly. The people of the Immortal Court nodded, then split into 2 groups and walked towards the left and right sides of the empty space. Lord, are we going to start the investigation? Seeing that the people of the Immortal Court had already started moving, Xiangyang immediately walked up and asked the leader. It's almost time. We don't want to delay you. It's better for both of us to finish the investigation as soon as possible. The person of the Immortal Court said calmly. But we still have many people who haven't arrived. Xiangyang said hurriedly. We don't have enough time. You've already wasted 3 days of our time. We need to prepare too. What do you need to prepare? Just gather everyone here. But the immortal-seeking sect is a sect, and we need people for many posts. If someone leaves his post, it may affect the development of the whole sect. Can't we get someone to replace him? Many posts only have 1 post, and no one can replace him. Moreover, everyone has to be examined. Who can replace him? Unless you're willing to conduct the investigation on a small number of people, in which case the development of the immortal-seeking sect won't be affected. But that will affect our efficiency, the leader said in a low voice. Besides, the magic treasure we use for the examination is limited and can only be used 5 times. After that, it can't be examined anymore. This is a precious opportunity. How can we use it on a small scale? Then there's no other way. If you use it now, I believe that 5 times won't be enough to thoroughly examine the people of the immortal-seeking sect. There are so many people in your immortal-seeking sect. The leader seemed to be a little doubtful. Since we got the support of the Lord of the Carefree Palace, the strength of our immortal-seeking sect has been improving day by day. It's no longer the same as before. Humph, cut the crap. Let's examine first. Don't waste time. You can afford to waste time, but I can't. If the important affairs of the immortal court are delayed, your immortal-seeking sect won't be able to escape responsibility, the leader said in a low voice. Hearing that, Xiangyang frowned slightly and said no more. The people of the immortal court began to move. They split into two groups and directly leaped into the air. These people stretched out their palms and slapped in the air. There was a thin red stone in their palms. These stones all emitted a strange energy. The energy collided with each other and finally transformed into rays of light that shot towards the palms of the people opposite them. In just 5 breaths, a dark red starlight array appeared and floated directly above their heads. What's that? What do the people of the immortal court want to do? Are they going to kill us? How dare they? Besides, we haven't done anything wrong. Why should they kill us? Even if they are from the immortal court, they can't be so lawless. Don't they represent the law of the immortal court? How can they do this? It's not as complicated as you think. Don't worry too much. Then what are they going to do? I heard that they're going to examine us. Examine what? We are innocent. Who knows? But I heard that the people of the human hall are quite mysterious. Human hall? It's not just the human hall. Those fellows from the earth hall, fire hall, earth hall, and water hall are all very mysterious. They almost never come into contact with us. I don't know if they look down on us, but if we want to talk to them, they will ignore us. That's right, they're really arrogant, but it doesn't matter. Entering the immortal-seeking sect is just to lay down some foundations and learn some things. When I'm done here, I'll leave this half-immortal sect and find a more powerful immortal sect to obtain a stronger cultivation. Hee, that's what I think too. Some of the newly recruited disciples of the immortal-seeking sect whispered to each other. However, even more of the immortal-seeking sect disciples stood quietly on the spot, looking around without any intention of saying anything. And most of these people were devil cultivator-esque, and a portion of them were the group of people who surrendered to the immortal-seeking sect. The most nervous person at the moment was probably not Xiangyang, but Su Luo and the round demon who was hidden behind the crowd. The round demon tried his best not to arrange for the devil cultivator to enter, but the majority of the current immortal-seeking sect were devil cultivator-esque. In order to hide the truth, Su Yun had asked Xiangyang to recruit a group of people who were relatively simple and not very smart to enter the immortal-seeking sect. These people's talent was not high, and their cultivation was not high either, so they could not cause any trouble. The purpose of their existence was to deal with people like the immortal court. However, the current immortal court actually wanted to investigate every single person from the immortal-seeking sect. With such a large number of people involved, it was impossible to rely on those people to fool them. As for those who had surrendered to the immortal-seeking sect, although they were controlled by the heart control pill, it was hard to guarantee that no one would betray them. What made the round demon even more nervous was that he did not know what the red formation above everyone's heads was for. He had no idea what this formation could find out and what methods these people from the immortal court had. At this moment, the round demon was in a completely passive state. Everything seemed to be up to fate. Crash. At this time, the dark red formation above everyone's heads suddenly floated up. It continuously shook like a spinning hula hoop, and every time it shook, a large amount of dust would fall from the formation. When the dust landed on people's bodies, it made them feel extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 1160. Your Excellency, what the hell are you doing? What's the matter with that formation? Xiangyang's brows furrowed like a fried dough twist. He took a few steps forward and questioned the leader. Don't be too nervous. It's not a big deal. The material that falls from the formation won't affect them. It's just that the weaker ones will feel a little uncomfortable. It's not a big deal. But the people in my sect don't think so. Your Excellency, what's the use of this formation? Please tell me, so that I can tell them and comfort them. Otherwise, they will know nothing about it. In this way, it will inevitably cause panic. At that time, it will be our immortal-seeking sect that will suffer heavy losses. This should be what you, the sect leader, should do. But this is also the responsibility of the Immortal Court. If this matter is spread out, it will have a great impact on the reputation of the Immortal Court, right? Xiangyang gritted his teeth secretly and pretended to be calm. What impact can this have? The Immortal Court bullied us, a small half-immortal sect. The whole sect was manipulated by the people of the Immortal Court without knowing the reason. If this matter is spread out, the reputation of the Immortal Court will naturally be damaged, Xiangyang said. The leader's face immediately darkened. He turned his head and stared at Xiangyang, saying in a deep voice, "Are you threatening me? How dare I?" Xiangyang immediately put on a look of fear and trepidation. "Then shut up." The leader snorted coldly. Although they were only a team and were no match for the people of the Immortal-Seeking sect, their identity could completely suppress the Immortal-Seeking sect, so their attitude was naturally different. "If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me. I didn't mean to offend you, but this matter isn't really a secret. Even if I didn't say it, some people would definitely add fuel to the fire. I'm only doing this out of consideration for the reputation of the Immortal Court. I don't have any other intentions." Xiangyang cupped his fists again and said with an indifferent look. These words actually caused the leader to be in a dilemma. He thought for a while, then snorted and said in a deep voice, "Fine. Since you want to know, it's not impossible for me to tell you. This formation is actually a formation to distinguish between devil chi and disguise spell." Demonic chi and disguise? Xiangyang's heart skipped a beat, but his expression did not change much. Yes, when the dust falls on those who have devil chi and disguise skills, it will immediately produce a reaction. The murderer of the celestial pool is a devil dweller. If he is hiding in your Immortal-Seeking sect, he will definitely not be able to escape. Are you suspecting that my Immortal-Seeking sect is hiding demons? The other party can also sneak in. You just don't know about it. In that case, I understand. Xiangyang said faintly and walked away. This was not good news for him. Disguise and devil chi were the most serious problems facing the Immortal-Seeking sect at the moment. In order to cover up the devil chi, many demons had cast the illusory skill and shielding skill on them. If what the man of the Immortal Court said was right, the people of the Immortal-Seeking sect behind them would definitely be exposed. Xiangyang walked towards Su Luluo. Seeing that, Su Luluo asked Faceless to temporarily arrange the scene while she walked over. Sect leader Xiangyang, what's the situation? Su Luluo first casually asked Xiangyang, and then, while the people from the Immortal Court were not paying attention, he lowered his voice, wrapped it with immortal power, and asked carefully. It's terrible, Xiangyang said in a low voice. This formation is specially used to detect disguise and devil chi. We must quickly think of a way. Otherwise, our people will definitely be exposed. Think of a way? I can see that the speed of the formation is extremely fast. Maybe in less than half an incense stick of time, we'll be able to clean up the first half of the people who have just entered the Immortal-Seeking sect. In other words, we only have half an incense stick of time to prepare, and at this time, it will be too late to think of anything. Su Luluo said in a low voice. Then what should we do? Xiangyang panicked. Don't worry. Su Luluo frowned. She lowered her head and started to think. After a while, she raised her eyes and looked at Xiangyang seriously. Now, according to what you said to the people from the Immortal Court, immediately inform the people of the Immortal-Seeking sect about the use of this formation and the intentions of the people from the Immortal Court. Announce it loudly, so that the people from the Immortal Court can hear it, and let them know that you are asking about the function of this formation to appease them. After that, immediately arrange for someone to come over and sneak into the front row. Do what? Cause trouble, Su Luluo said in a low voice. Hearing that, Xiangyang was startled for a moment, but he quickly understood Su Luluo's plan and nodded seriously. I understand what to do. With that, he immediately went to make the arrangements. The people from the Immortal Court did not know what Xiangyang was going to do. They only saw him muttering a few words to a disciple. The disciple left, and then Xiangyang directly walked to the front of the crowd and shouted, All of you don't have to panic. Since you are a disciple of my Immortal-Seeking sect, I, Xiangyang, will definitely protect you. Today's matter is not a big deal. It is just to cooperate with the lords of the immortal court to carry out a small investigation. Everyone, calm down. This matter will be over very soon. Xiang Yang's words were very solemn, but some of his words were vague and not very comprehensive. The leader frowned. He felt that this was a little inappropriate, but he did not say anything. After all, Xiang Yang was only trying to appease the people. There was no need for him to say it so clearly. When they found out the intentions of the people from the immortal court, some of the people who were confused and even angry finally calmed down. They could be considered to have understood the intentions of the people from the immortal court. Originally, he thought that everything would go smoothly, but unexpectedly, while the formation in the sky was still shaking, suddenly, an angry shout came out. "What the hell is this thing? I've had enough. I've had enough. Don't scatter it on me anymore. Bastard." An angry voice came out, and a strand of immortal chi burst out from the crowd, directly smashing towards the great formation in the sky. Boom! The great formation was caught off guard and was directly shaken. A large number of cracks appeared on its surface, and the entire great formation actually stopped operating. What? The faces of the people from the immortal court all changed. The entire arena was in an uproar. Xiang Yang was even more astonished. He anxiously looked towards the source of the immortal chi, only to see a man dressed in blue robes raising his hands high, staring angrily at the sky. The immortal chi in his palms had yet to dissipate. It was obvious that the attack just now was his masterpiece. Bastard! Bastard! People of the immortal-seeking sect, are you rebelling? The leader flew into a rage. He took a few steps forward and roared at the people in the arena, directly spread out, almost suffocating many people. "Zhao Qi, what are you doing? How dare you ignore the laws of our sect, ignore the lords of the immortal court, and openly destroy the immortal court's magic treasure? What the hell are you doing?" Xiang Yang rushed over and shouted loudly. The male immortal called Zhao Qi was furious, and the disciples of the immortal-seeking sect around him scattered, as if they were avoiding the plague. "Sect leader, I don't want to do anything. I just feel uncomfortable. What the hell is this thing? The dust that falls from it makes me feel uncomfortable. I couldn't hold it in, so I touched it," the person called Zhao Qi said with a displeased expression. "Bastard, how dare you call yourself an elite of our sect? Didn't you hear what I said? This is a magic treasure of the immortal court. Even if you didn't hear what I said, you should have seen who released this formation, right? How dare you do such a thing? Do you have any respect for me or the lords of the immortal court?" Xiang Yang was so angry that he wanted to kill this person called Zhao Qi immediately. Unexpectedly, Zhao Qi said angrily, "Sect leader, it's fine if these people from the immortal court are investigating, but why do they have to make us suffer? We have nothing to do with this. Why do they have to make us suffer like this? I don't accept this. I don't accept this. I don't care which immortal court he is from. I only know that this is the immortal-seeking sect. Everything must be done according to the rules of the immortal-seeking sect. I am the vice-sect leader of the immortal-seeking sect. The rules of the immortal-seeking sect are set by me. When is it your turn to wipe your mouth?" Xiang Yang flew into a rage and pointed at Zhao Qi, shouting, "Guards! Here!" A large number of tall and burly people of the immortal-seeking sect walked out from both sides. "Take him away, put him in jail, and keep a close watch on him. I will cooperate with the lords of the immortal court to settle things here, and then we will settle the score with him." Yes, the people of the immortal-seeking sect on both sides immediately walked forward, grabbed Zhao Qi, and were about to drag him to the back. "Let me go. Let me go. I don't accept this. Why are the people of the immortal court allowed to do whatever they want in the immortal-seeking sect? I don't accept this. Sect leader, I don't accept this." Zhao Qi struggled and shouted, his voice still echoing in the empty space. The leader frowned and did not say a word. Xiang Yang hurriedly turned around and ran to him, forcing a smile on his face. That, "Lord, I have made a fool of myself in front of you. My sect is small, but it has a lot of people, and people from all walks of life come to join us. I never thought something like this would happen today. I'm really sorry, really sorry. The leader snorted lightly and said indifferently, "Take good care of your people." With that, he turned around and shouted at the people of the Immortal Court. "How is the formation?" "The formation source was damaged, and it may take some time to repair it." "How long?" "About 2 days." "So long?" The leader was stunned. Another 2 days of delay? This trip to the immortal-seeking sect would take nearly half a month's time. In that case, time was running out. The leader frowned. He knew that if this went on, he would not have time to investigate the immortal-seeking sect anymore. "We can't go on like this." The leader's eyes turned cold, and his gaze swept across the people of the immortal-seeking sect. Chapter 1161. The leader didn't know whether Xiang Yang and the others were stalling for time or not, so he couldn't make things difficult for them. After all, Xiang Yang had already punished that person. Even if they were just acting, there was nothing they could do. They couldn't testify without evidence. Ever since this incident, Xiang Yang had been secretly observing the movements of the people from the Immortal Court while dealing with the accident on the surface. The people of the Immortal Court were still repairing the Grand Formation. Their speed was very fast. It didn't take long for most of the damaged places to be repaired. Although they said it would take a few days, it only took a little more than a day to repair the Grand Formation. There was still not enough time. Sacrificing an elite disciple could only buy such a little time. It was too hasty, and it was obviously impossible to think of any other countermeasures. Furthermore, such a thing could never happen again. Otherwise, it would truly anger the Immortal Court and might even arouse their suspicions. And if he did not think of a countermeasure, once the formation was repaired, the devil cultivator-s in the immortal-seeking sect would definitely be exposed. Xiang Yang was anxious, but he had to pretend to be calm, which made him extremely worried. Su Luluo watched from the side. She was naturally aware of Xiang Yang's situation. Although Xiang Yang was one of the older batch of people from the immortal-seeking sect who had surrendered, he was already on the same boat as Su Yun. If this matter was exposed, he would definitely be used by the Immortal Court to read minds. And at that time, the matter of him participating in the attacks on other sects would definitely be exposed, and the Immortal Court would definitely not let him off. I'm afraid this matter will not be so easily fooled. The Immortal Court has already begun to pay attention to the immortal-seeking sect. Just as Su Luluo was thinking, the round demon beside him spoke up. "Does Elder Yuan Mo have any countermeasures?" Su Luluo asked. The round demon was silent for a moment, then shook his head. Su Luluo sighed, her eyebrows knitted, and started to think. It's already too late to move the devil cultivator, and a large-scale transfer will not be able to escape the eyes and ears of the Immortal Court, and will make them even more suspicious. For now, I'm afraid there's only one plan. "Miss, do you have any thoughts?" The round demon looked at Su Luluo and said, "It might be a little risky, but it's worth a try, and it can also temporarily wash away the suspicion of the immortal-seeking sect." "What method?" The round demon narrowed his eyes. "I might need you to do this, Elder." As Su Luluo thought, he said softly, "Now, quickly send someone to inform the nearest Carefree Hall and Hidden Dragon Hall. Tell them to secretly organize a group of troops, and in the name of the Devil Cultivator, head towards the Immortal Court." "Marching into the Immortal Court? Miss, what do you want to do?" The round demon was stunned. "Attack the Immortal Court," Su Luluo said seriously. "What?" "Elder Yuan Mo, don't panic. This is the only way to divert attention. This group of people can use the name of the Devil Cultivator to attack the Immortal Court. Then the people of the Immortal Court will naturally not focus on the immortal-seeking sect, although those people use the name of the Devil Cultivator. But in reality, they're not real Devil Cultivator, so they will not leave behind any Devil Chi. Let Xing Bai and Qin Xianlong, the two sect leaders, warn them not to leave any traces. After the feint attack, quickly retreat. Do not leave a single person behind to be captured by the Immortal Court. Send some loyal people. Once captured, immediately self-destruct. Do not leave any clues. If they feign an attack, the immortal-seeking sect will naturally be washed clean. But that's only in the future. It's too late to prepare now. Xing Bai and Qin Xianlong need time to lead their troops to attack. and we can't buy any more time for them. Furthermore, even if we attack now, I'm afraid these people won't leave the immortal-seeking sect. The round demon shook his head. Su Yilua's plan could not solve the urgent situation. Elder Yuanimo, the matters over there will depend on the two sect leaders, Qin Xianlong and Xing Bai, and here. Naturally, it will depend on you. Su Luluo said. Rely on me? Yes, I can only rely on you. Su Luluo said in a low voice. You have followed your brother for a period of time. I believe your cultivation is not shallow. I cannot see through your cultivation. I do not know what realm you are in, but I think that it should not be difficult for you to escape from the hands of these immortal court people, right? The round demon was silent and did not speak. Su Luluo looked at him quietly, as if waiting for his reply. After an unknown period of time, the round demon said in a low voice, All right, I understand what to do. Elder Yuan Mo, I'll be relying on you this time. For the true devil sect, this is my duty. Furthermore, Lord Demon Lord has sacrificed even more for the true devil sect. What do my matters count for? The round demon shook his head and said, When do we start? I'll prepare first. When the time is right, I'll send someone to inform you. In short, we have to act before the great formation is repaired. All right. The round demon nodded, turned around, and left. The leader of the immortal court paced back and forth in the empty field, because there were no longer any people from the immortal-seeking sect rushing to the empty field. This made him a little uncomfortable. Didn't that fellow Xiangyang say that there were still a lot of people from the immortal-seeking sect? Is that all? The leader frowned as he scanned the people present. His gaze did not only land on the masked man. When he first saw this person's back, his heart couldn't help but jump a few times. For some reason, he felt a sense of familiarity. This masked person, who could it be? Captain, we can't waste too much time here. If that guy is just passing by and has already escaped, then we're still wasting time here. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to find that person again. We must confirm that guy's location. At this moment, the veiled female immortal from before walked up and said, I know, but since things have come to this, we have no other leads. We will first investigate the immortal-seeking sect, and if there are no problems here, we can go back and report. As for searching for the whereabouts of the immortal pond, evil man, we're not the only ones doing this. When the time comes, we could just look for the envoy. The leader said in a deep voice. As the sound of his voice faded, everyone nodded. That's true. Since the higher-ups have ordered us to investigate here, then let him be. We just need to do our job well. How long will it take for the grand formation to be repaired? Soon. It will be done in the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. In that case, you should make some preparations. Send 2 people to keep an eye on those people. If anyone dares to make any strange moves, kill them on the spot. Don't hesitate, the leader said in a cold voice. Yes, Captain. Previously, everyone's focus was on the grand formation. No one expected that the people of the small immortal-seeking sect would be so bold, so they succeeded. Now, we're keeping an eye on them. With the ability of the immortal-seeking sect, do you think they can make trouble under our eyes? No way. The long-haired man snorted coldly. I hope you won't let me down, the leader said. The time it took for half an incense stick to burn passed quickly. Then, a clang was heard coming from the grand formation. Those people who were repairing the grand formation immediately dispersed. One of them shouted at the leader, Captain, it's done. Good. It's much faster than expected. The leader said in a deep voice, Then let's begin. Yes. The people of the immortal court were divided into 3 groups. 2 groups stayed in the air to maintain the grand formation, while the other group spread out and surrounded the empty field, staring at the people of the immortal-seeking sect. After receiving the news, Xiangyang almost rushed to the empty field. When he saw the dark red grand formation that was still hovering and trembling in the air, his face was full of astonishment. How could it be repaired so quickly? He hurried to the leader and asked in astonishment. I thought it would be slower, but the damage to the grand formation is not as bad as I imagined. The leader said lightly. Then he stared at Xiangyang and said, Sect Leader Xiangyang, I want to ask you. Didn't you say that there are more people in the immortal-seeking sect? Why are there still these people in this place? Where are the others? My lord doesn't agree with my plan. I have no choice but to arrange the people of the sect here in batches. After all, the grand formation needs time to check, so I didn't ask them to leave their posts. When this batch is finished, I will let the next batch come. Humph, I hope you don't play any tricks. My lord, what are you talking about? Why would Xiangyang play tricks? Our immortal-seeking sect is open and above board, frank and open. I hope so. The leader snorted and said no more. Xiangyang pretended to be calm, but his heart was in a mess. He didn't have any countermeasures at the moment. What should he do? If the grand formation continued to repair, it would be impossible to hide. He stared at the grand formation, with sweat dripping down his forehead. He looked at the grand formation nervously. The dark red grand formation continued to sprinkle dust forward, moving forward little by little. The people below were still very uncomfortable. They complained everywhere, but no one dared to make trouble. Soon, the newly recruited disciples of the immortal-seeking sect were about to pass. Next were the disciples of the immortal-seeking sect, disguised as demons, and those who surrendered. Seeing this, Xiangyang's heart almost jumped out of his throat. It couldn't go on. Absolutely not otherwise. The immortal-seeking sect couldn't see the sun tomorrow. Boom! At this critical moment, a black light suddenly exploded in the crowd, and then a large amount of demonic chi was released. A figure jumped out of the crowd and rushed into the distance. Humph! I didn't expect the people of the immortal court to find this place. I was too careless, but it doesn't matter. You guys can't do anything to me. The figure made a disdainful sound and directly rushed into the sky. Xiangyang was stunned. The people of the immortal-seeking sect on the empty field immediately burst into an uproar. Demon? Is that a demon? A demon is hiding among us. Damn it. That person is the mad disciple of the immortal pond. He killed Zun Li and the other lords. Take him down. The shouts continued. The people of the immortal court immediately stopped the operation of the grand formation and chased the figure with all their strength. Xiangyang was still a little confused. He didn't know what was going on. But at this moment, a clear female voice came out from the periphery of the crowd. Everyone has a responsibility to exterminate demons and protect the Tao. This demon cultivator is actually hiding in our immortal-seeking sect. How can our immortal-seeking sect remain indifferent? All of you, quickly attack and help the lords of the immortal court capture this demon. Quickly. The voice came from Su Luluo. Chapter 1162. Yes, sir. A large number of figures immediately flew out from the empty field and chased after them, causing the entire empty field to immediately become chaotic. The leader frowned, but his eyes were more focused on the sky. I never thought that your immortal-seeking sect would actually have a criminal from the immortal court. Xiangyang, tell me, are you hiding a wanted criminal? The leader looked at the sky for a moment, then immediately turned his head and shouted at Xiangyang. Master, what do you mean? I do not know how that devil cultivator snuck into my immortal-seeking sect. My immortal-seeking sect is innocent. Master, I'm innocent. Xiangyang immediately shouted. The indifference from before had disappeared without a trace and was replaced with panic. Wronged? Oomph, I saw it with my own eyes. How can I be wronged? Master, you said it yourself. That guy's the murderer of Lord Zun Li. Who is Lord Zun Li? That is a third-stage Profound Envoy. Lord Profound Envoy can crush us to death with a single finger. How can we possibly hide the murderer of Lord Zun Li? After all, the murderer's strength is not low either. It would naturally be easy for him to sneak into my immortal-seeking sect. Xiangyang hurriedly said. These words were reasonable. The leader thought for a moment, then snorted and said, You all are still suspicious. Wait for me to capture that person. I will interrogate you all. Capture. Lord, this person's strength. It's not simple. Xiangyang asked carefully. After all, how could they be able to capture someone who could kill Zun Li? What's wrong with that? For this trip, the higher-ups have given us a few incredible magic treasures. It is said that this person is injured. Taking him down will be a piece of cake. The leader sneered. Then, he leaped up and chased after the man. Xiangyang stood on the ground and watched, his eyes filled with worry. He paused for a moment, then turned his head to look at Su Luluo. He quickly walked over and cupped his fists. Mississippi, do they have a special magic treasure? That's right. It should be an incredible treasure. Is that so? We can only rely on Elder Yuan Mo's own good fortune. Su Luluo thought for a moment, then said, Miss, you asked Elder Yuan Mo to pretend to be master to attract their attention? Among the demon dwellers, he is the strongest. But if Elder Yuan Mo is captured, what should we do? Have Faceless follow them and keep an eye on them. If they can escape safely, that would be for the best. But if they can't, have Faceless kill them. Killed? Xiang Yang shuddered with fear. I heard from my brother that Faceless is the famous Golden Armor Force saint. His cultivation base is extremely strong, and his divine strength is unparalleled. It shouldn't be too difficult for him to eliminate these envoys of the Immortal Court. But if the people of the Immortal Court die here, then the Immortal-seeking sect will not be able to escape the crime. In order to protect Elder Yuan Mo, this is the only way. After those people die, we have to sacrifice some of our people and pretend that we have suffered great losses as well. Let the people of the Immortal Court know that we are also victims. Not only have the people of the Immortal Court died, but we have also lost more people and destroyed more places. Let them think that we are just implicated and not involved in the matter. Is this okay? If Master Xing Bai and Master Qin Xianlong can successfully feign an attack on the Immortal Court, then we will definitely not be suspected. I understand, Xiang Yang said in a low voice. Although Su Luluo spoke in a relaxed manner, she was extremely worried in her heart. This matter was not as good as he had imagined. If any accident happened, it would have an extremely serious impact on the Immortal-seeking sect. If anything went wrong, it would be beyond redemption. Xiang Yang immediately sent Faceless to support the Round Demon. No matter who it was, they were unable to predict what would happen next. The only hope now was that Qin Xianlong and Xing Bai would be able to set off quickly and successfully attack the Immortal Court. As long as the commotion from that side reached here, the Immortal Court's focus would definitely shift, and the Immortal-seeking sect would be able to catch their breath. This time, Xiao Chua did not send a message over, which meant that the Immortal Court had already placed great importance on this matter, so much so that they did not send the message through the envoy, but directly sent it through the upper echelons. Big brother, where is he now? Su Yiluo's messy mind suddenly thought of Su Yun, and his eyes revealed a complicated expression. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew through the silent Martial God Peak. The current Martial God Peak was already desolate and uninhabited. It was like an abandoned realm, without any life or a single person. Su Yun and Sword Ancestor gently flew on top of the Martial God Peak, staring ahead. Now that you have obtained the inheritance of the strange stone and possess the power of 10,000 beasts, your strength has increased greatly. Although your realm has not advanced, you have already reached the peak of the 5th stage of the Spirit Profound God, and are only a step away from the 6th stage. I believe that before long, your strength will reach a new peak. Su Yun, I look forward to the day when you can reach the peak of the sky and look down on all living beings. The Sword Ancestor said indifferently. Hearing that, Su Yun was startled for a moment, then laughed bitterly. Master Ancestor, do you wish for me to become the master of all worlds? More or less that. A person like me, becoming the master of all worlds, is not a good thing for the living beings of this world. Su Yun shook his head. In the end, I still understand myself. A person like me does not have a so-called benevolent heart, is selfish, and only seeks profit. This kind of person is usually called a despicable person. Master Ancestor, I might have to let you down. Is this self-deprecating? That's the truth. Then, I can only say that you don't know yourself well enough. The Sword Ancestor suddenly stopped, turned and looked at Su Yun, and said with a serious face, You are indeed selfish, but why are you doing it? You're doing it to protect those that you think you should protect, those that are worth protecting. You have indeed hurt people, and it can even be said that your hands are stained with blood, but who is this blood? It's the blood of those who deserve to be killed, you know? From the beginning to the end, you have never forgotten your original intentions. No matter how high your position is, no matter how powerful you are, you will never forget your kindness. Take the True Devil sect, for example. The current you actually do not need the True Devil sect anymore. As long as you are willing, you can throw the True Devil sect and even the True Devil realm away at any time. But you did not. You are willing to risk your life for the True Devil sect, and you are even willing to become enemies with the Immortal Court for the True Devil sect. This is not righteous. At least this is righteous. The Sword Ancestor said indifferently. Su Yun was speechless. He was speechless. It is precisely because of this that I believe in you, Su Yun. Furthermore, the sword sheath behind you carries the lives of all living beings in the world. Once you are unable to suppress the evil sword, all the realms and even the immortal world will suffer. The reason why I created the Limitless Sword sect was originally because of this intention, but I did not have the heart to develop the sect, causing the sword sect to decline. But your appearance has rekindled my hope, Su Yun. I will collect the rest of my soul as soon as possible, and during this period of time, I hope that you can find more spirit swords and throw them into the sword sheath to suppress the evil sword. Master Ancestor, don't worry. Since it's Master's orders, Su Yun will definitely not forget. That's good. The Sword Ancestor nodded and said. Very quickly, the two of them arrived at the edge of the peak of the martial god realm. The Sword Ancestor still used his finger to form a sword and slash through the air, creating a path. Su Yun, let's part ways here. You still have things to do, so don't worry about me. Furthermore, it's already extremely easy for me to collect the remaining souls, so don't worry. Since Master Ancestor has said so, Su Yun will not force it. If Master Ancestor needs Su Yun for anything, please contact me immediately. Su Yun immediately said, don't worry, I won't be polite. The Sword Ancestor laughed out loud. Su Yun nodded his head, and without further ado, he and the Sword Ancestor flew out of the peak of the martial god realm and went their separate ways. After leaving the Sword Ancestor, Su Yun's heart was naturally filled with worries. Since suppressing the evil swords in the sword sheath required a large number of spirit swords, then he alone would not be able to collect them all. For now, there was only one way, and that was to use all of his strength to collect these spirit swords. Spirit swords did not differentiate between strong and weak. As long as they had intelligence, it would be much easier. If that was the case, it would be much easier to mobilize the powers of the ultimate martial world and the immortal world. Su Yun looked at the vast ocean in front of him, and his heart could not help but become restless. Since I'm in the ultimate martial world, I should go and see Mu Yu and Mei Er. I haven't seen her for so long, I wonder how that girl is doing. Thinking about Hu Qianmei's cute and charming face, Su Yun's heart could not help but beat faster. Humph! Just then, a cold snort came out from the sword sheath. Su Yun was shocked. He did not realize that Ling Qingyu had been paying attention to what was happening outside. Qingyu, aren't you going to cultivate? Su Yun asked carefully. He realized that Ling Qingyu had been coming out more and more frequently recently. I'm too lazy to cultivate. In any case, I won't be able to train anything no matter how much I train, so I might as well do this. Ling Qingyu said unhappily. You're giving up on yourself. None of your business. That's not good. The purpose of cultivation is not only for strength. If one's cultivation is high, they can also extend their lifespan, maintain their appearance forever, and even have the effect of beauty. It is said that the higher the cultivation of a woman, the more beautiful she is. Therefore, in the hearts of people, fairies and goddesses are unparalleled in the world. You pervert! Is that all you think about? Ling Qingyu said angrily. I don't care about you. I'm going to cultivate. Ling Qingyu said angrily. And then there was no more movement. Su Yun was amused. Although he said that he did not want to, he still wanted to. After bickering with Ling Qingyu, Su Yun's mood became a lot better. He increased his speed and rushed straight to Beiyang. Chapter 1163. Beiyang was much more prosperous than before. Su Yun flew in the air and looked down. Looking at the sea of people in the city, his heart was filled with emotions. Flying was not allowed in the city. He had deliberately concealed his aura, so the guards in the city did not notice him. The current Beiyang was already completely controlled by Huairou Muyu. All the cities in Beiyang were managed by the Chamber of Commerce. There was no city lord in the city, only a steward. Everything in the city was free, and the commercial specifications of the Chamber of Commerce were used as a template for development. If the spirit cultivators wanted to seek the protection of the supreme expert and concentrate on cultivation, choosing to rely on the Chamber of Commerce was the most suitable. The Chamber of Commerce had a special department to accept the spirit cultivators. The spirit cultivators worked for the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Commerce provided the spirit cultivators personal safety, materials, and cultivation coins. Both sides were mutually beneficial, and each took what they needed. The Chamber of Commerce would not restrict the spirit cultivators' movements. Suyin did not think that this was Hu Qianmei's idea. It was most likely promoted by Huairou Muyu. Suyin looked around and quickly arrived at the central city of Beiyang, the main merchant city of the Huairou family. He did not go to the Chamber of Commerce, but headed straight for the house he had bought. When he thought of Hu Qianmei's cute little face, his heart couldn't help but feel a long-lost warmth. Was this the feeling of reuniting with his family? The enchantment of the house was not activated. Now that Beiyang was peaceful, there was no need to build too much defense. Otherwise, it would be inconvenient to enter and exit. At the entrance of the house stood 2 armored guards with large blades in their hands. The guard of the 2 could be seen entering and exiting the door. They were carrying baskets, and inside the baskets were many rare materials that were inconvenient to put into the space bag. Suyin wanted to give the 2 girls a surprise, so he was too lazy to let the guards report. He sped up and entered the house. What? Did something happen just now? What? Maybe it's my imagination. Are you stupid? The 2 guards whispered to each other. There weren't many changes to the mansion, but there were a lot more servants and maids. They were all wearing the same clothes and had the word Huairou on their sleeves. They were probably servants from the Huairou family. Suyin still remembered Hu Qianmei's Xiao Yuan. With a few turns, he arrived at the entrance of the Xiao Yuan. At this moment, in front of the small garden, a girl was sitting on the steps at the entrance. Her small hand was supporting her cheeks, and her head was like a chick pecking at rice as she dozed off. Suyin did not disturb her, and silently went around the girl and rushed into the house. Plop! At this moment, the hand that was supporting her cheeks suddenly loosened and her head drooped down. She couldn't do anything and directly fell to the ground. She hurriedly got up and looked around in fear. Seeing that there was no one around, she heaved a sigh of relief. She wiped the dust off her face and mumbled, "Luckily no one found out, otherwise it would be terrible. Young Miss is cultivating inside. I have to keep a close eye on her. If someone goes in, then it's over." The maidservant was still rejoicing, but she did not know that someone had already entered the small garden. The small garden was incomparably quiet. The flower beds on both sides were in full bloom, and spirit butterflies were dancing on the flowers. The quiet small garden gave off a feeling of paradise. Suyin looked at the pavilion in front of him, took a light breath, and walked over. His steps were very light, as if he did not want to disturb the people inside. He walked all the way to the door and stopped. He raised his hand, intending to push the door open and give the people inside a surprise. At this moment, there was no movement inside, but 2 light gasps fell into his ears. Suyin was stunned. This was Hu Qianmei's pavilion. Could it be that other than Hu Qianmei, there was someone else? Suyin frowned, hesitated again and again, and finally pushed the door open and entered. Creak! The door was pushed open. A pink light shone into his eyes. This seemed to be a barrier, but this barrier's cultivation was not high. At least to Suyin, it was useless. He looked towards the center of the barrier, but with just a glance. His entire person was stunned. Who? A somewhat panicked and delicate voice came out. Looking at the source of the voice, 2 naked girls were hugging each other. These 2 girls were naked from head to toe, and their snow-white skin touched each other. Both of them were outstanding beauties. One of the girls was petite and exquisite, with a pair of snow-white fox ears on her head and a large furry tail behind her butt. The other girl's expression was quite elegant, But at this moment, her face was covered in a rosy red. Although her eyes were a little dim and her skin was a little pale, this bashful posture still gave off an infinite sense of beauty. Seeing the two girls hugging each other, Su-yun was stunned on the spot, as if a thunderbolt had struck him on a sunny day. "Big brother, Su-yun?" The two girls looked at the person who came in and exclaimed. It turned out that these two girls were Hwaro Muyu and Hu Qianmei. At this moment, they seemed to have the most intimate relationship, hugging each other and relying on each other. Two pairs of gem-like, cute eyes slightly widened as they looked at Su-yun. They did not expect Su-yun to return at all. Su-yun did not expect that the two girls would actually be hugging each other while naked. What was he doing? Could it be that they had not seen each other for too long, and they were already lonely to this extent? "You? What are you doing?" Su-yun only regained his senses after a long while, and said those words with difficulty. Hu Qianmei was startled. Only then did she realize the situation she and Hwaro Muyu were in. Hwaro Muyu's small face suddenly turned extremely red, as though blood was about to drip out. She almost instantly let go of Hu Qianmei, her hands tightly hugging on her breasts, her small head drooping extremely low. Only then did Hu Qianmei start to laugh. A pair of charming big eyes glanced at Su-yun and laughed. "Big brother, how is it? Is the scenery here beautiful?" "Scenery? It's all right, but Mayer, have I been away for too long, and you guys are too lonely?" Su-yun asked carefully. Unexpectedly, after saying that, Hu Qianmei was stunned for a moment, and then laughed out loud. "Ah, big brother, what are you thinking? You can't be thinking that Muyu and I... Ha ha! Yes, yes, we are really lonely. You scoundrel, why aren't you comforting us?" Hu Qianmei's reaction was rather exaggerated, but Hwaro Muyu had also thrown away her shyness and glared at Su-yun angrily. Xian snorted and said, "What's in your head? Could it be that it's not?" "Of course not, you idiot." Hu Qianmei stopped smiling, immediately stood up, and lightly leaped over, that fragrant and soft body directly squeezed into Su-yun's embrace. Su-yun felt as if a ball of cotton had crashed into his embrace, and saw Hu Qianmei placing her hands on his shoulders, her small face buried in his chest for a while. Then she raised her head and looked at him with a pair of intoxicated eyes. Su-yun could feel that the temperature of Hu Qianmei's body was rapidly rising. "It's not a dream. I'm not dreaming this time. Big brother, you're really back. That's great. You're really back." Hu Qianmei muttered, and with a tap of her feet, her pink lips pressed towards Su-yun's big mouth. Although Hu Qianmei's performance was extremely relaxed, Su-yun could still feel the emotions in her heart from her eyes that were filled with excitement and countless complicated emotions. Hu Qianmei had always been the woman who understood him the best, but after so long, he was unable to accompany her by her side, causing Su-yun to feel extremely guilty in his heart. If he could, he really wanted to let go of everything and leave these troublesome places with his loved ones so that he could spend the rest of his life with them. "Mayer, this is not a dream. I'm back," Su-yun whispered and hugged Hu Qianmei tightly. His strong and powerful arms were like the safest harbor, causing Hu Qianmei to be extremely intoxicated. He lowered his head and responded to Hu Qianmei's enthusiasm, and the two of them kissed deeply in front of Hwaro Muyu. Hwaro Muyu watched from the side in a daze. Looking at this intense scene, she almost forgot to put on her clothes. Hu Qianmei seemed to feel that just a kiss was not enough to express her longing for Su-yun for the past few days. She suddenly extended her small hand and actually wanted to tear Su-yun's clothes. Su-yun was startled. He raised his head, looked at Hu Qianmei's small face that was already moved, and said, "Mayer, let's wait a moment. After all, Muyu is still here." "No, big brother, give it to me. Mayer, it's so uncomfortable. I want it now." She was like a little fox in heat, directly pouncing on Su-yun. All these years of longing seemed to want to be vented out at this moment. Su-yun doted on Hu Qianmei and did not want to see her suffer like this. At this critical juncture, he actually did not stop her. Hu Qianmei became more and more straight. She extended her sweet and smooth tongue and continuously licked Su-yun's neck, one hand tearing at Su Yun's clothes, the other hand actually reaching down towards Su Yun's head. This girl was getting more and more daring. Huairou Muyu's eyes widened as she watched the scene. As she watched, her face became paler and paler, and her slightly pink cherry lips became bloodless. When Hu Qianmei anxiously took off Su Yun's clothes, she heard a put-on sound, and the naked Huairou Muyu immediately fell to the ground. Her eyes tightly closed. She had actually fainted. Hearing the commotion, the two of them were startled, and only then did they wake up. They anxiously looked over, and were all stunned. Muyu, Su Yun, and Hu Qianmei cried out involuntarily. This time they did not care about the beast's desire, and immediately ran over. Su Yun did not know that his actions had such a huge impact on Huairou Muyu, to the point that she fainted. Chapter 1164. Hu Qianmei swung her huge tail and sat beside Huairou Muyu. She extended her small hands and dug a few times in front of her soft and perky breasts. Su Yun, who was at the side, saw it and immediately turned his head. Although the relationship between him and Huairou Muyu was subtle, the two of them still couldn't let it go. Now that Huairou Muyu was naked in front of him, he actually felt a little awkward. Seemingly sensing Su Yun's actions, Hu Qianmei's small mouth raised slightly, revealing a sinister smile. She then pinched Huairou Muyu's extremely soft chest a few more times and smiled at Su Yun. "Big brother, quickly come and touch it. It feels very good. You smelly fox. See how I'll take care of you later." Su Yun was a little angry. "Hee, I want to see who will take care of who later." Hu Qianmei giggled, then took out a set of clothes from somewhere and put them on for Huairou Muyu. She also draped one over herself and then activated the array formation in the house. She helped Huairou Muyu up and sat cross-legged in front of her. She then activated the profound qi and placed both of her hands on Huairou Muyu's lower abdomen, injecting profound qi into her. From the looks of it, it was more like Hu Qianmei was treating Huairou Muyu's injuries. Su Yun frowned. He looked at Huairou Muyu. This time, he finally saw through it. Previously, because the two girls were naked, he did not pay attention to them. Now that his attitude was correct, he finally saw some clues. It turned out that inside Huairou Muyu's body, there was a weak energy corroding the profound strength in her body. She had not fainted because the two men's movements were too stimulating, but because of the weak energy collision in her body. It wasn't that Su Yun was interested in all women's naked bodies. He was only interested in women that he cared about. If he let some other beautiful women that he didn't know appear naked in front of him, his focus might not be on these women. This energy was practically useless to Su Yun, but to Huairou Muyu, it was extremely strong. It was attached to the Qi Meridian, but it would not harm the Qi Meridian, and with the methods of the people of the ultimate martial world, it was extremely difficult to remove this energy, because if one was not careful, the Qi Meridian would be injured, and with the existence of the profound qi inside the Qi Meridian, it would cause the internal structure to be extremely unstable. If it was not treated properly, it would cause the patient to suffer unbearable pain. But if it was not treated, the energy would continue to spread along the Qi Meridian until it corroded the spirit core, and if it continued, the cultivation would definitely regress and would never increase. This energy could not enter Huairou Muyu's body for no reason. Without a doubt, she had been poisoned by someone. Hu Qianmei's ability was weak. It was extremely difficult to get rid of the energy, but looking at everything she was doing, it was to heal her. Healing Muyu. She has been poisoned. If she does not heal in time, her cultivation will regress. Hu Qianmei closed her eyes and continued to urge her qi. The two girls' faces became pale white, and their bodies were covered in perspiration. Healing Muyu. She has been poisoned. If she does not heal in time, her cultivation will regress. After a while, Hu Qianmei opened her eyes and looked at Huairou Muyu and said softly, "As expected, I still have to take off my clothes and use all of the profound qi in my body to force out the poison. Just like just now? You two are hugging each other?" Su Yun asked. "Yes." Hu Qianmei nodded her head and suddenly laughed sinisterly. "Big brother, do you still want to see the scene just now?" "Yes." Su Yun admitted it openly. but then said, "But there's no need for that. Let me treat Mu Yu." With that, he walked to Huaro Mu Yu's side, extended a finger and tapped on her forehead, then stopped. In that moment, Huaro Mu Yu's pale, white face immediately recovered. Her face gradually turned red, and her consciousness seemed to have recovered. She opened her eyes, looked around, and saw Hu Qianmei and Su Yun in front of her, and was stunned. But the one who was even more astonished was Hu Qianmei. She looked at Huaro Mu Yu in a daze. She anxiously reached out and dug a few times on her chest, causing Huaro Mu Yu to pant. "It's gone, the poison is gone?" Hu Qianmei was stunned. These small poisons can't withstand the impact of the immortal qi. Su Yun smiled slightly. "Immortal qi?" Hu Qianmei suddenly turned his eyes and looked at Su Yun. "I forgot, big brother, you are now an immortal." "I can't be considered an immortal. You seem to be countless times stronger than before." "You can tell. I can feel it. But why hasn't my strength increased?" Hu Qianmei looked at her small hands in confusion and muttered, "Big brother, you are already so strong. I'm no longer worthy of you." "What nonsense are you saying?" Su Yun lovingly caressed Hu Qianmei's small head and laughed. "With my strength, your physique is no longer able to restrain me, and I can no longer share my strength with you. But no matter how big the difference in strength between us is, it doesn't matter, even if I am a high and mighty god. You're just a mortal. The relationship between us will never be severed, understand?" Hearing that, tears welled up in Hu Qianmei's eyes. With a wah sound, she threw herself into Su Yun's embrace, sobbed a few times, and started to caress him again. "This way, fox." Su Yun laughed bitterly and let her be. Huaro Mu Yu was still a little confused. Her eyes were filled with confusion. She looked at herself, then looked at Hu Qianmei and Su Yun, and after a long while, she finally said a few words. "What's wrong with me? I wanted to ask you guys." It was said that after he established the empire, he would immediately plunder all the cultivation coins, magic treasures, and materials of the spirit cultivators in the realm. Every spirit cultivator in the realm would have to pay a hefty tax every 10 days. If they could not pay in time, they would have to join the imperial army, work, or join the army. In short, they had to serve the empire. The entire border of the empire was completely sealed off by the army. Outsiders were only allowed to enter, and those inside were not allowed to leave. Hearing this, Su Yun was surprised. "I haven't left the ultimate martial world for long. How did such a person appear? The last time Big Brother came, he was already here. It's just that the commotion at that time wasn't as big as it is now. Is he starting to make a move on Beiyang now?" Of course, Beiyang is a place that is completely ruled by the Chamber of Commerce, and is rich in resources. How could he let it go? As early as 2 months ago, he had already sent troops over, but the spirit cultivator in our Beiyang formed an army and defeated Ming Chang's motley crew. Hu Qianmei said, "Not bad, not bad. However, Ming Chang's army is too huge. A fierce tiger can't fight against a pack of wolves." Adding on Ming Chang's frequent attacks, the defensive lines in Beiyang have already started to collapse one by one. In the afternoon, it is only a matter of time before they are captured. Hu Qianmei took a deep breath and suddenly said to Su Yun seriously, "Big brother, do you know that Ming Chang is very arrogant? He knows that the leader of the Beiyang's Chamber of Commerce is Mu Yu, so he directly threatened her, saying that he wanted to unify Beiyang and even wanted Big Sister Mu Yu to be his concubine. Big Sister Mu Yu does not comply. He will strip Big Sister Mu Yu naked and refine her to death in public." "Oh," Su Yun replied expressionlessly. "Big brother, are you angry? Do you think I should be angry?" Su Yun glanced at her. How could he not know what Hu Qianmei was thinking? Hu Qianmei laughed, then continued. "However, our Beiyang is different from the other realms. We have strong financial resources and have also built an army with astonishing strength. Ming Chang's motley crew is not a match for our army. And after suffering several defeats at the border, Ming Chang sent out assassins to assassinate Mu Yu and also poisoned her. The poison on Big Sister Mu Yu's body was caused by Ming Chang. Heh, is there anyone more despicable than me?" Su Yun's voice became heavy. "Who is this guy? I don't know where he came from, but, big brother, I feel that he should be related to the immortal world. Just then, Hu Qianmei suddenly said, Chapter 1165, Immortal World? Su Yun was startled. Why do you say that? Because the magic treasure he used, the source of power, is quite similar to the one you gave me. So they should all be products of the immortal world. Therefore, I guess that he either came from the immortal world or is related to the people of the immortal world. Hu Qianmei's small face revealed a rare, serious expression. Are you sure those are items from the immortal world? Although Mayer doesn't understand immortal energy, from the phenomena of the magic treasures he uses, she can most likely be sure. Hearing that, Su Yun nodded his head. I have heard of some sects in the immortal world secretly sending disciples into the myriad realms. They use their disciples as their hands, secretly supporting them, quietly entering the myriad realms to gather resources for them. This Ming Chong is most likely a member of the immortal sect. If not, if he was only plundering resources to increase his strength, he would have gone to the immortal world. That's possible. Big brother, I don't know much about the situation in the immortal world, but I think that a person like Ming Chong is definitely not from the ultimate martial world. He has so many immortal treasures, and his cultivation is astonishing. If he was born and raised in the ultimate martial world, he would have long been included in the rankings and would have long become famous. How could he still be unknown? It wasn't until recently that the world knew about it, Hu Qianmei said. Su Yun nodded his head slightly. It's too early to say anything now. When we meet this Ming Chong, we will know everything. Yes. Oh, that's right, Mayer. There's something I need you to do with Mu Yu. Just then, Su Yun seemed to have thought of something and immediately said, What's the matter? Brother, just say it. It's about the Limitless Sword Sect. This matter is too complicated, and I can't explain it clearly in a short period of time. I need you to use your energy in the Bei Yang to find me some swords. Sword? Hu Qianmei felt a little baffled. Big brother, is your weapon not enough? Hu Qianmei had seen Su Yun's powerful imperial sword technique before. Tens of thousands of flying swords were flying everywhere. How grand and majestic was it? With so many swords, why was he still looking for swords? Could it be that Su Yun's imperial sword technique had made another breakthrough, and he needed more swords to unleash its power? The swords I asked you to find aren't for me. They have other uses. All right, you're looking for a sword, right? Brother, how many do you want? Just say it. How many do you want? Mayer will find a few for you. Hu Qianmei said with a relaxed face. With their strength in Bei Yang, wasn't that just a matter of a word? The swords I want are not ordinary swords. Those swords are useless to me. What I need are swords with spirituality. A sword with spirituality? The more Hu Qianmei heard, the more confused she became. Yes, a spiritual sword with spirituality is a sword with a weak consciousness in the traditional sense. If that's the case, it won't be easy to find him. I'll have to put in some effort. I need to find someone to gather information about this before I can make my move. Hu Qianmei was a little worried, but quickly laughed again. But you don't have to worry, since Big Brother wants it. Mayer will definitely gather it for Big Brother. Big Brother, how many do you want? Mayer will help you get them all. It's been hard on you. Su Yun was moved. Naturally, the more the better. Big Brother is so annoying. Is there a need to be so polite between us? Hu Qianmei rolled her eyes at him. Su Yun laughed and did not say anything else. Huairo Mu Yu, who was at the side, quietly watched the two of them talk. Her eyes that were like autumn water flashed with waves of envy. Hu Qianmei secretly looked at Huairo Mu Yu, who was at the side, and suddenly smiled slyly. Big brother, what do you think of the current Bei Yang? Hearing that, Su Yun was startled for a moment, then said, Very good, much better than I imagined. This is all thanks to Mu Yu. I know this. I've always trusted Mu Yu's words. This is also why I want to hand the Bei Yang over to her to take care of. If I hand it over to you, it will destroy the Bei Yang. Humph, big brother. Do you really not believe in Mayer's ability? Hu Qianmei pretended to be angry. I'm just joking. All right, let's not talk about these useless things. Big brother, actually, I have an idea that I want to tell you. If you think it's not suitable, then just treat it as a casual listen. Don't take it to heart. Just then, Hu Qianmei's small face suddenly became serious. Su Yun was startled and asked, "What idea?" "It's about Muyu." Muyu. Su Yun was startled. Thoughts flashed through his mind. Could it be that this girl wanted to? "Big brother, what are you thinking about?" Hu Qianmei looked at Su Yun. Seeing his expression, the clever her immediately guessed something and immediately snorted. "Don't have any bad thoughts again. I'm a serious person." Su Yun coughed and immediately said, "You should talk about the matter first." Hu Qianmei glanced at him and then said, "Brother, you have also seen the current prosperity of the Beiyang. In fact, the current operation of the Beiyang is very successful. The people of the other realms are imitating the Beiyang, but they are unable to organize a powerful chamber of commerce as a cornerstone to support this operation model, and relying on their power to carry it out is obviously not feasible. This is also why more and more foreign spirit cultivators choose to enter the Beiyang to cultivate, because only the Beiyang has such conditions. However, the Beiyang is only so big, it is impossible to satisfy the entire ultimate martial world, and there are more and more people who need such conditions to cultivate. So, brother, I have discussed with Muyu. We plan to expand the realm and develop the chamber commerce in other realms to satisfy more spirit cultivator, and we can also control more resources. Oh, hearing Hu Qianmei's words, Su Yun pondered for a moment and said, "Aren't you guys trying to invade? Are you guys planning to rule the ultimate martial world?" "How is this an invasion? This is just for the benefit of the public, and it is impossible for us to rule the ultimate martial world without the support of the supreme expert. This is impossible. Although we are no longer afraid of the people of the ultimate martial world, I think the people of the other realms will not allow us to dominate, such as the immortal world." "That is the truth. The ultimate martial world is the hub of the myriad realms. The immortal court of the immortal world also attaches great importance to this. If you really become a dictator, they will definitely interfere. If not, the ultimate martial world will be out of their control. Either they will send people to stop you from unifying, or they will send people to directly rule you, no matter what. You must listen to the immortal court," Su Yun said solemnly. "The immortal court is so tyrannical? The immortal court is in charge of the laws of the immortal court, but they also have to take care of the myriad realms. If you unify the other realms, they will most likely not care, but the ultimate martial world is different. It is almost the political center of the myriad realms. If you unify it, it will have a huge impact on them. How can they sit back and do nothing? Then, I can only give up on this plan." Hu Qianmei sighed. "Give up? Indeed, you have to give up, but you don't need to unify it. First, expand the power of the Beiyang. You have to strengthen yourself first, when the power in your hands can swallow the ultimate martial world at any time. Even if you do not unify it, you will have already controlled the entire ultimate martial world." "That's fine, but Ming Chong is a problem." Let's solve this problem first." Su Yun laughed, his face relaxed. In fact, he was also a little surprised that Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu's thoughts were so bold. But after thinking about it carefully, it was most likely Huairou Muyu's idea. Hu Qianmei was most likely not interested in such things. It was probably because Huairou Muyu did not dare to say it. So he asked Hu Qianmei to say it. In Huairou Muyu's heart, Su Yun was already an immortal, her methods were outstanding, and no one in the ultimate martial world could match her. If she obtained Su Yun's support, if she really wanted to take action, it would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. And if she did not have the support of the supreme expert, it would be difficult to deal with the other supreme expertess. Su Yun did not know what this strong woman wanted to do, but if she could expand the power of the Beiyang, it would be a good thing for Su Yun. After all, the power of the entire Beiyang actually belonged to him. "Mayor Muyu, let's go find Ming Chong." Su Yun looked around and said directly, "All right, I'll immediately count the people." Huairou Muyu immediately said, "Count the people." Su Yun was startled. "Count who?" "Of course, it's the experts of the Beiyang. Ming Chong is strong, and his power is not weak either. There are many experts around him. Could it be that only the three of us are going?" Huairou Muyu seemed to have thought of something and muttered, "Of course, let's go meet that Ming Chong first." Su Yun laughed. "Big brother's strength should be enough to take care of that bastard." Hu Qianmei laughed. I still don't know what methods that Ming Chang has, Su Yun said, and then immediately walked out. It was impossible to say that he did not bring anyone. After all, Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu were the vice presidents of the Beiyang Chamber of Commerce, so they had to line up when they went out. The steward prepared 2 glazed carriages for the 2 girls, 20 maids and 30 guards. Holding up the curtains, activated the array, and directly headed towards the Sky Dragon domain in a grandiose manner. At the border between the Beiyang realm and the Heavenly Dragon realm, the merchant army formed by the Chamber of Commerce of the Beiyang was still in a stalemate with the Heavenly Dragon army. The 2 of them used the Heaven-Yang River as a boundary and faced each other, and it had been close to a year. Ming Chang's army had a lot of experts, and they had immortal treasures bestowed by Ming Chang, so their fighting strength was outstanding. But Beiyang's side had a lot of people, and Beiyang was rich and overbearing, and had also hired many powerful spirit cultivators to help. So they were not at a disadvantage, and were still able to contend against Ming Chang's army. But in the end, this was not the way. It was said that Ming Chang was already impatient. The repeated losses made him furious. For this, he specially walked out of the newly built palace in the Sky Dragon region, and directly rushed to the front lines. From the looks of it, he planned to use his own methods to personally open the gates of the Beiyang. Chapter 1166. Huairou Miyu did not know if she could control Ming Chang this time. But even if she did not succeed, it was still possible to rub Ming Chang's spirit. So she did not tell anyone about it, and only told the people below that she was going out to investigate. The people below did not dare to say anything, and the group flew quickly towards the border. 2 carriages, Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu, sat on one, while Su Yun sat alone. When the guards and maids saw this, they were extremely puzzled. Who was this man? How could he receive such treatment? Furthermore, looking at the actions of the 2 presidents, they were extremely close to this man. Although they saw it, they did not dare to say much. They still understood who the Beiyang was. Su Yun sat cross-legged on the carriage. He did not activate his immortal qi to hurry on his journey. In fact, the entire ultimate martial world was monitored by the people of the Immortal Court. The people of the Immortal Court did not allow immortals to cause trouble in the various realms, as this would cause the order of the realms to be disrupted. It had to be said that sometimes Su Yun admired some of the methods of the Immortal Court. Although they were sometimes heartless, they had indeed fulfilled their obligation to uphold justice in the immortal world, and had also fulfilled their obligation to restrain the immortals and protect the myriad realms. Although they were sometimes unable to do so, without the Immortal Court, not only would the immortal world be in chaos, even the myriad realms would be in chaos. It was just that their positions were different, so Su Yun and the Immortal Court slowly became like fire and water. Let's try to find out who Ming Chang is later. If we can find out his background, that would be for the best. If we can't get any information, then we'll just wipe him out. Su Yun stared at his own palm and clenched his fist slightly. A seemingly ordinary qi circled around his palm. Although this qi was light, it could easily tear apart the earth and shatter the mountain range. For an existence at the spirit god level, even a small finger could easily pierce through Mount Tai. Hula. At this moment, the curtains of the carriage were suddenly lifted. Su Yun was startled. He looked over, only to see Hu Qianmei directly entering. Before he could even react, the warm and soft, delicate body squeezed into his embrace. Mayor! Just as Su Yun was about to speak, her soft and fragrant lips directly stuck to his big mouth. Her small hands tightly held onto his shoulders and pushed his entire body onto the chair of the carriage. Hu Qianmei was extremely thirsty. She did not give Su Yun any chance to catch his breath, and kissed him crazily. Her wet and smooth tongue extended into his mouth and continued to explore and absorb. Not long after, Hu Qianmei was gasping for breath. She could not hold on any longer. She raised her head, her lips parted, and looked at Su Yun with her charming eyes. Su Yun naturally understood Hu Qianmei's intentions. He smiled slightly, and no longer suppressed himself. He picked up the girl and placed her on his lap, then extended his hand and peeled off the clothes on her body piece by piece. After a while, Hu Qianmei closed her eyes and gently played with the profound qi in her body. Although she had dual cultivated with Su Yun countless of times in the past, this long drought had finally met with rain, giving her an unprecedented feeling, and the benefits of dual cultivation this time were also extremely shocking. Hu Qianmei was surprised to discover that the profound qi in her body had undergone an unprecedented change at this critical juncture. The profound qi was even purer than before, and the flesh and blood in her body had also started to be reborn, becoming completely new. His cultivation had suddenly soared by 3 stages. He had already begun to peek into the spirit sage realm. How was this possible? This was simply a miracle. Hu Qianmei opened her eyes wide. She could not believe what she was feeling. How could this be? Hu Qianmei was overjoyed. Su Yun caressed her fair back, then reached out into the air, and a few pellets appeared in his palm. "Take it," Su Yun said gently. Hu Qianmei nodded, opened his mouth, and placed the pellets into his mouth, swallowing them all in one go. When the pellet entered his stomach, Su Yun immediately extended his hand and pressed it on Hu Qianmei's abdomen. Waves of warmth came from his palm, causing people to feel extremely comfortable. Hu Qianmei's face was flushed red, her pink lips slightly parted. This kind of comfortable feeling actually made her unable to control herself. The few pills that entered his abdomen were quickly digested, and the medicinal effects spread to every part of his body. Hu Qianmei carefully tasted the benefits of the few pellets, and after a moment, she suddenly opened her eyes, the surprise in her eyes becoming more and more obvious. These few pills are actually modifying the spirit core in my body. What kind of pills are these? Immortal pills. Immortal pills. Hu Qianmei was startled for a moment, then suddenly realized that Su Yun was already an immortal, so the pills he usually used were naturally immortal pills. To the people of the ultimate martial world, every single one of them was a priceless treasure, but in the immortal world, it might not be that precious. Suddenly, Hu Qianmei felt an inexplicable sense of loss. She took a deep breath, as though she wanted to hide her disappointment, turned her head to the side, and squeezed out a smile from the corner of her mouth. Su Yun naturally noticed a change in Hu Qianmei and asked curiously, "Mei, what's wrong?" "What? What's wrong? You have something on your mind." "What do I have on my mind?" Hu Qianmei said with a puzzled look. But Su Yun did not believe him at all. He sighed and said, "Mei, I learned a technique in the immortal world that can peep into people's hearts. You should tell me the truth. Don't let me peep into your heart." Hearing that, Hu Qianmei was shocked. This was the first time she had heard of such a method. But looking at Su Yun's expression, she knew that he would not use it on her. Hu Qianmei thought about it again and again, then sighed, "Big brother. Actually, it's not that big of a deal. It's just that Meier's thoughts are a little rigid." "Thoughts? Meier wants to. Now that big brother is an immortal, even my physique cannot restrain you. You are so powerful, but I am incomparably small. The gap between you and me is getting bigger and bigger, the current me. Can I still be worthy of you?" As Hu Qianmei spoke, his voice became softer and softer. Her eyes drooped slightly. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. She was a little afraid. The sense of inferiority in her heart gradually grew stronger and stronger. The current Su Yun was already an immortal. He had met countless fairies in the immortal world. She was just a half-demon. In terms of looks, how could she compare to fairies? In terms of cultivation, there was no need to talk about it. Unexpectedly, just as she finished speaking, her head was impolitely glanced at by Su Yun. "Huh?" Hu Qianmei cried out in pain. She covered her head and looked at Su Yun with tears in her eyes, only to see Su Yun staring at her with a serious face. Seeing that gaze, Hu Qianmei was extremely afraid. "You are not allowed to say such words in the future, and you are not allowed to have such thoughts. Do you understand?" Su Yun said seriously. Hu Qianmei was startled. She looked at Su Yun, only to realize that the man's eyes were unprecedentedly focused and even a little angry. He suddenly reached out his hands and hugged Hu Qianmei tightly in his embrace. "No matter what I become, no matter what you become, the relationship between us will never change, and my feelings for you will never change. Do you understand?" "Meier." Su Yun lowered his head and whispered into her ear. With that said, Hu Qianmei was stunned for a moment. Her eyes trembled intensely, and tears welled up in her eyes. Finally, she could not hold it in any longer, and with a wah sound, she started to cry and buried her head into Su Yun's embrace and started to cry loudly. Su Yun gently patted her back and comforted her softly. In this life, there would always be many shackles. Su Yun understood that he would not be able to escape in the end. After driving for nearly 2 days, the carriage finally arrived at the border of the Beiyang. At this moment, most of the cities at the border of the Beiyang were heavily guarded, but the number of spirit cultivators in the cities were obviously not as many as the cities in the hinterland. Many of the spirit cultivators that came from the outside only stayed in the city for a short while, before hurriedly leaving. Obviously, everyone knew that a war was about to break out here, and many people did not have much hope for the Beiyang Merchant Association. Huairou Muyu and Hu Qianmei led Su Yun and rushed towards the biggest Tiger Roar city in the surroundings. The Tiger Roar city was built by the Tiger Roar Chamber of Commerce, but after Huairou Muyu took over the 100 Meetings Alliance, the Tiger Roar Chamber of Commerce believed that they were powerless against Huairou Muyu, so they merged with it, leaving behind the gigantic Tiger Roar city. The main force of the Beiyang Merchant Association was stationed in the Tiger Roar city, and there were even a large number of spirit cultivator experts guarding it. The headquarters of the Beiyang Merchant Association was also located there. When the marshal of the Beiyang Merchant Army found out about the arrival of Huairou Muyu and Hu Qianmei, he was immediately shocked and immediately sent people to welcome them. They had not received any notice at all, and the leader at the very top had arrived. How could they not be terrified? When Huairou Muyu and Hu Qianmei entered the Tiger Roar city, the soldiers in the city had already lined up in 2 rows to welcome the 2 girls. The scene was extremely grand, as though they were welcoming an emperor. Hu Qianmei's face was full of smiles. She did not care about the situation, but Huairou Muyu frowned. She looked at the soldiers on both sides, summoned the marshal who was leading the army, and said directly, "Cancel the ceremony. Go straight to the commander's tent to discuss matters." With a simple sentence, the marshal immediately understood the personality of the mistress who ruled over the Beiyang. The marshal did not dare to be careless, and immediately ordered all the soldiers to return to their respective positions and summoned all the generals to gather in the commander's tent to discuss matters. Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu directly entered the commander's tent, while Su Yun stood at the side as a guard. This was Su Yun's own request. He did not wish to immediately reveal his identity, in case he was discovered by the immortal court spies in the ultimate martial world. What he needed was to keep a low profile and safely handle this matter. Very quickly, the marshal and more than 10 generals walked in one after another and stood in line. The atmosphere in the tent was solemn. Hu Qianmei secretly looked at Su Yun, but did not say a word. She had always left the matters here to Huairou Muyu to do. Huairou Muyu glanced at the generals and marshals in a dignified manner. Although she was a woman, she was extremely powerful in this aspect. Those so-called marshals and generals could not surpass her in terms of aura. "Marshal Gu, there's no need to talk about the battle. I already know about it. I just want to know about Ming Chang's current movements and when he will arrive at the front lines," Huairou Muyu directly said. Chapter 1167. The man who was called Marshal Gu immediately understood what Huairou Muyu was thinking. This was a decisive woman who did things without the slightest hesitation. If he did some useless things in front of her and said some useless nonsense, she would look down on him. Although Huairou Muyu had just arrived at the front lines, she had definitely sent people to pay attention to the front lines. She was naturally clear about the situation of the battle, but those were all delayed for some time, and Ming Chang's matters were just like that. It is said that Ming Chang will arrive at the front lines early tomorrow morning. For this operation, Ming Chang has brought all of his experts from the Heavenly Dragon region, although there are not many of them, and they cannot even be called an army, but those experts have all received Ming Chang's immortal treasures as a reward, and their methods are extremely powerful. Just the treasures that Ming Chang has given them are enough to fight against an elite general. And Ming Chang has personally come. I'm afraid that this time he plans to directly break through my Beiyang army's defensive line and attack Beiyang. Marshal Gu said with a serious face. If Ming Chang did not personally come with the intention of winning, how could he do this? In fact, Marshal Gu had already sent people to the center of the Beiyang to inform Huairou Muyu of this matter a few days ago, because he could not figure out what Ming Chang wanted to do. If Ming Chang were personally come, he would definitely not be able to resist. However, Huairou Muyu's speed had exceeded his imagination, and she had actually arrived here without a sound. But this was clearly not enough. Although Huairou Muyu and Hu Qianmei's cultivation was strong, but against Ming Chang, they could not even look at them. This time, they only brought a few ordinary guards and maids, and did not see any famous experts, which made Marshal Gu, who was waiting for a long time, extremely disappointed. However, there was one person that Marshal Gu paid attention to, and that was the man standing between Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu. This person stood there quietly, and no aura could be felt from his body. He looked like a guard, but guards were usually outside, so why did he come in? Could it be a personal guard? Marshal Gu had never heard of Huairou Muyu and Hu Qianmei asking for a personal guard, let alone a male guard. He was guessing Su Yun's background, but his mouth was slowly reporting about Ming Chang. Seems like Ming Chang is getting impatient. If he plans to personally attack the Beiyang this time, then he must have brought all his treasures with him. It is said that although this guy is strong, the most terrifying thing is his immortal treasures. These immortal treasures have all sorts of functions, and ordinary spirit cultivator are unable to contend against them. Hu Qianmei, who had been sitting there as if he was watching a show, suddenly spoke. President Fox is right. Marshal Gu hurriedly said, actually, we can deal with all of Ming Chang's forces, regardless of whether they are strong or weak, with the strength of the Beiyang merchant group. It is not difficult to contend against them. It is just that Ming Chang is not easy to deal with. If there is no existence that can match him, then no one will be able to stop him. Does Marshal Gu have any countermeasures? Huairou Muyu asked. This. Marshal Gu thought for a moment, sighed, stood up, and cupped his fists. This subordinate is incompetent if it is against Ming Chang. This subordinate is afraid that I am powerless. Ming Chang possessed absolute strength. Although Marshal Gu was good at fighting, he was not good at scheming. If he were to deal with Ming Chang alone, he would be helpless. Since that's the case, then leave Ming Chang to me. Huairou Muyu thought for a moment, then secretly looked at Su Yun and said, President has a way to deal with Ming Chang. Marshal Gu was startled for a moment, then quickly said, You don't have to worry about anything. Just give Ming Chang a letter of challenge, set a time. The two armies will clash and decide the victor. If Ming Chang has already rushed to the front lines, he will definitely agree. After all, he also hopes to open the gates of the Beiyang as soon as possible. Huairou Muyu said. Marshal Ji's heart was filled with confusion. The Beiyang army had not been established for a long time, and he, the so-called marshal, was also recruited at the last minute. Of course, Huairou Muyu's ability to judge people was not bad. Although Marshal Gu did not have much contact with Huairou Muyu, he had heard of this woman. Although this woman had some methods, her strength was not outstanding. Marshal Gu would not believe that she could deal with Ming Chang. However, when he thought about how Ming Chang had threatened to capture her and make her his dual cultivation companion after finding out about Huairou Muyu, Marshal Ji's heart began to race. This Huairou Muyu, could it be that she wanted to secretly set up an ambush to deal with Ming Chang? Since the president has said so, then this subordinate will go and prepare. When Ming Chang rushes to the front lines, this subordinate will immediately send someone to deliver the letter of challenge. Yes, Marshal Gu, thank you for your hard work. Huairou Muyu stood up and said softly, I have been rushing all the way here. I am a little tired. Order someone to arrange 2 military tents for me. I want to rest. Yes. Marshal Gu cupped his fists and said, then immediately ordered people to make arrangements. Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu directly walked out of the military tent, and Su Yun followed closely behind. Under the lead of Marshal Gu, a group of generals walked out of the military tent and sent the 2 women and 1 man off. When he watched Huairou Muyu leave, Marshal Gu sighed deeply, his face filled with worry. I never thought that these two presidents would come at this time. From the looks of it, could it be that they have a way to deal with Ming Chong? Marshal Gu said in a low voice. These two women are quite capable. Don't underestimate them. Since they have come to the front lines, they might really have a way to deal with Ming Chong. The general at the side said, That's right. Our abilities are only limited to this. Let's wait and see. But Marshal, if Bai Yang's side is defeated and that woman is unable to deal with Ming Chong, then what should we do? Someone asked carefully. With that said, everyone fell into silence. Defeat? These two glaring words made people's hearts jump. I heard that Ming Chong is a cruel and heartless person. Anyone who betrays him will be sentenced to death. Not only will his body be crushed, his soul will also be imprisoned for his pleasure. If we are defeated and captured, I'm afraid our fate will be extremely miserable. The people at the side said with lingering fear. When the others heard this, their faces also turned pale. Ming Chong has already conquered several realms. His strength is monstrous, and the only one who can contend against Ming Chong is the Beiyang Commerce Army. If the Beiyang Commerce Army is unable to contend against Ming Chong, then Ming Chong will definitely be able to advance into the entire ultimate martial world with an irresistible force. Maybe he can even unify the entire ultimate martial world. If that's the case, then we won't have any foothold in the ultimate martial world. If we make a mistake, we will lose everything. We can't stand on the wrong side. The generals discussed cautiously, all of them wearing solemn expressions. Marshal Gu had been listening the entire time without any expression on his face. He did not say a single word, and no one knew what he was thinking. The generals all looked at him with different thoughts in their minds. In fact, they could not be blamed for this. The current Ming Chong was like the sun in the sky. His power was extremely strong, and the leaders of the Beiyang commerce were two women, so they were more or less worried. Marshal Gu knew this, and Huai Romuyu, who had already left, also knew this. After an unknown period of time. Let's wait and see. Don't come to a conclusion too early. This woman, Huai Romuyu, is not as simple as you think. She was able to unify the Beiyang in such a short period of time and develop the Beiyang to its current flourishing state. It can be seen that her methods are extraordinary. Furthermore, there's one thing you do not know. Huai Romuyu's position in the Beiyang commerce is the vice president, which means she's not the real leader. There is still someone above her. Marshal Gu said solemnly. As soon as he said that, everyone present focused their gazes on him. There's another person. Marshal, who else? Of course, it's the main meeting. In the end, they did not pay much attention to the secrets of the Chamber of Commerce and did not know much about the matters of the Beiyang commerce. Is it that President Hu Qianmei? She's not. She's just a vice president. Then, Marshal, who are you talking about? The generals all stared at Marshal Gu with their eyes wide open. Marshal Gu swept a glance at these people and said indifferently, All of you came from the outside, so naturally you do not understand the matters of the Beiyang. At that time, the Beiyang was not as unified as it is now. At that time, the Beiyang was in the period of the Chamber of Commerce's struggle for hegemony. The various Chamber of Commerces were fighting for wealth, and although it was a Chamber of Commerce for the sake of benefits, the Chamber of Commerces could be said to be fighting to the death, and it was especially tragic, especially for a few large consortiums. It had already risen to the level of war. However, this situation was quickly broken. Do you know who broke this situation? Huai Romuyu. Someone said subconsciously. However, Marshal Gu shook his head. No, she's just a manager. The true unifier is the president. When everyone heard this, they were all shocked. At this time, Marshal Gu suddenly thought of something, and his eyes became absent-minded. This time, both Hu Qianmei and Huai Romuyu had come, but not only them, they had also brought a man. Could it be that man? Thinking of this, Marshal Ji's face immediately turned pale, and sweat dripped down from his forehead. Marshal, what's wrong? The generals beside him saw that Marshal Ji's expression was not right, and hurriedly asked. No, nothing. Marshal Gu shook his head, took a deep breath, and suddenly changed into a serious expression, and shouted to the generals. Since you're eating the monarch's salary, you must naturally share the monarch's worries, and your heart is loyal to the monarch. Since you are all under my tent, you should obey me, and even more so, do not doubt any of the monarch's decisions and abilities. For today's matter, all you can talk about it. Do not say any more. If I hear anyone say anything about the monarch, I will not let them off lightly. Do you understand? Hearing Marshal G's words, everyone couldn't react. Why did Marshal Gus suddenly become so loyal? However, no one dared to say anything, and could only clasp their fists in agreement. Chapter 1168. Marshal Gu had divided 2 military tents, intending for Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu to have one each, while Su Yun and the other servants had arranged for him. Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu did not introduce Su Yun, so it was not easy for Marshal Gu to guess his identity. However, Huairou Muyu had indeed entered one tent, while Su Yun had been pulled into another tent by Hu Qianmei. Mayor, what you should do now is to digest the benefits I've given you as much as possible, and not continue to ask for them. Su Yun said somewhat helplessly. I know, but big brother, you're really something. Mayor didn't pull you over for that. Hu Qianmei's cheeks were slightly red. She smiled slightly, and her eyes were filled with ripples. Then what is it for? Su Yun pinched her smooth little face. Hu Qianmei's eyes that were as big as gems rolled around, and then said softly, Big brother, don't you think that the current ultimate martial world is a little strange? Hearing that, Su Yun did not understand. What do you mean by that? Yeah, that's what I mean. Hu Qianmei took out a piece of parchment from somewhere and spread it out on the ground. Su Yun looked at the parchment, only to see that it was a rough map of the ultimate martial world. The more Su Yun looked at it, the more confused he became. Is this the blueprint of the ultimate martial world? What do you think this is for me? Hu Qianmei laid on the ground, her perky buttocks facing Su Yun. She looked at the map carefully, then pointed at an area on the map with her little finger, and said, This place is where we are, Beiyang. Yes. This is the heavenly dragon domain. Yes. Flawless domain. Yes. Flower sea domain. Yes. The entrance to the ultimate martial sacred plane. Yes. And this. Big brother, you should have been there before, right? Yes. Su Yun looked at the map and said, but after a moment, he frowned, as if he had sensed something. Hu Qianmei finally raised his finger, pointed to the area above the map, and asked, Then, big brother, do you know what this place is? It is said that the west of the Black Sea is a barren land. There are no islands or people there, only a pitch-black sea without any life. But that's all the information the outside world has about the west of the Black Sea, isn't it? Hu Qianmei's small mouth slightly curved and said, It is said that many people who went to the west of the Black Sea did not return, and there are very few things regarding the west of the Black Sea that have been spread around the continent. Some people say that it is actually a place where some hidden supreme expert lives, and that they cannot be easily disturbed, or else they will be easily crushed by those supreme expert. Are you interested in that place? A little, but not much. Then don't bother about it. Su Yun sighed and said, I have enough things to do. You little fox better not bring me more trouble. I'm wondering if that place has the resources we want. Then just send someone over. Previously, we sent 2 groups of people, but before they could even reach the west of the Black Sea, they all died. The current ultimate martial world is extremely chaotic, and the roads are filled with bandits. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. The ultimate martial world is so big, but other than here, there's still many places that we do not know about. Big brother, I'm just saying this. There's no other meaning. Hee, I'm going to cultivate, Hu Qianmei said, then sat down in front of Su Yun's crotch and immediately started to cultivate. Su Yun was startled. He laughed bitterly and could only let her go. In the blue sky, a large number of black shadows were frantically rushing forward, and at the very front of these figures was an existence that looked like a black meteor. This person flew extremely fast, as if he wanted to cut through the sky with his own body. Although the people behind him tried their best to catch up, it was difficult for them to keep up. Chase after him. No matter what, we must capture this person. The leader was also chasing with all his might. He was almost rushing with his immortal chi, and was not worried at all that he would be unable to fight against the pursuer when his immortal chi was exhausted. Therefore, his speed was also extremely fast. However, since he was not worried about the loss of his immortal chi, it meant that he did not plan to use his own strength to fight against this person. From the looks of it, he should have a trump card. The chase was extremely intense, but they didn't know that a masked man was also quietly arriving from the shadows. The person being chased was the round demon that had escaped from the immortal-seeking sect. He had released devil chi along the way, attracting the people of the immortal court to chase after him, and the immortal-seeking sect had already been targeted by the immortal court. If he did not divert the immortal court's suspicions towards the immortal-seeking sect, then the immortal-seeking sect would be in an extremely dangerous situation. Whether it was Su Yun or the round demon, they had both greatly underestimated the methods of the immortal court. It turned out that there was more than one person in the immortal court like Yuan Tianya. I have to buy as much time as possible. As long as the news of Qin Qianlong attacking the immortal court spreads, the suspicion of the immortal-seeking sect will be cleared. At that time, all the problems will be solved. The round demon thought. Now that the people of the true devil realm had already moved to the underworld, there was no longer a place for them to stay. If the power that Su Yun had established in the immortal world was also eradicated by the immortal court, then the true devil realm would have no chance to turn the situation around. No matter what, he had to protect the immortal-seeking sect. At the moment, Su Yun's power was not enough to contend against the immortal court, so he could not be exposed. The round demon's face was incomparably heavy, and his expression became somewhat sinister. He took a deep breath and increased his speed. It was just that these people from the immortal court seemed to be extremely proficient in the art of hunting. After chasing the round demon for so long, they did not reveal the slightest bit of exhaustion. The round demon gritted his teeth and turned his head to look behind him. He saw the leader take out a porcelain bottle with a dark blue flower stuck in its mouth. The flower bloomed. He stretched out his hand and tore off a piece of the blooming blue flower's petals. After crushing it, he waved his hand, causing the powder of the blue flower's petals to scatter and land on the bodies of the people from the immortal court. In an instant, their exhausted bodies were immediately refreshed. Another treasure of the immortal court, the round demon frowned. He was not to be outdone as he urged the treasure to escape. Actually, in terms of strength, the immortal-seeking sect's methods were enough to kill these people from the immortal court countless times over. There was no need for them to escape, but if these people from the immortal court died here, then they would confess. It was easy to kill these people, but it would be extremely difficult to deal with the army of the immortal-seeking sect that was coming from behind. Right now, he could only retreat and not advance. The leader chased relentlessly. Although the round demon could activate treasures, his treasures were still lacking compared to the strange and dazzling treasures of the immortal court. Even though Su Yun had a few powerful immortal sects in his hands, even if these immortal sects were to be tied together, they would not even be able to compare to a tenth of the immortal court. In front of us is the Fallen Cloud Beach. After the Fallen Cloud Beach, there is a spatial river. The spatial aura in the river is extremely strong. If you casually activate the spatial aura in the river, it will create a spatial fluctuation that will teleport the caster away from this place. As long as you get close to the river, you will be able to escape from the pursuit of the immortal court. The round devil's expression tightened. This time, he didn't hold back anymore. He exerted all of his chi and sprinted forward. His speed suddenly increased by several times, pulling away from the people of the immortal court behind him. After entering the immortal world, the strength of the round demon had also increased by leaps and bounds. As one of the main people in charge of the true devil realm in the immortal world, Su Yun placed great importance on his cultivation. In the past, the materials and immortal coins were all given to the round demon, and all kinds of rare treasures were also given to him. The round demon understood what Su Yun meant. The true devil realm needed strong devil cultivators to support it. The current true devil realm did not have as many people as the immortal world, and their individual fighting strength was also not as good as the immortal world. There were too many things that needed to be done, and he was only one person, so he needed another person to share the burden with him. The round demon's talent was extremely good. Although he looked old, he was extremely crazy when he cultivated. During this period of time, his strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, and could not be compared to the past. Although these people of the immortal court looked extremely ferocious, in terms of individual strength, they were all inferior to the round devil. Seeing the figure of the round devil getting smaller and smaller, these people of the immortal court became anxious. "Captain, what should we do? We can't catch up. Our auras won't be able to keep up. Damn it. Those people of the immortal seeking sect can't keep up with our speed at all. We should have let them go around and outflank us. It's too late now." "Captain," the few of them were impatient. If they failed here, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to find this person again. "Don't worry. This person won't be able to escape from my palm." The leader of the group suddenly raised the corner of his mouth into a cold smile. He took out a palm-sized bronze bell and placed it flat on his palm. As he flew, he stared at the ancient bell with a complacent look in his eyes. "Everything is actually within my expectations. You don't have to panic. This person has already fallen into our hands. He can't escape." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. "Captain, this is what?" This is the space flow clock given to me by the Lord. It's specially used to capture this guy." Space flow clock. Yes, after activating it, it can reverse the time of the existence in a specific location, returning him to the state and position of 100 breaths later. There's such a treasure. Could it be? "Captain, you purposely chased that person here?" Someone revealed the intention of the leader. However, the leader smiled coldly and nodded. "Yes, this time, he won't be able to escape." Hearing this, everyone's panic disappeared. So everything was under the control of the leader. They still chased relentlessly, but it was not as chaotic as before. Soon, the figure of the round devil in front of them gradually disappeared, completely shaking them off. However, they were not anxious, and directly rushed towards the space jump river. Without a doubt, to completely shake off the pursuit of the people of the immortal court, the space jump river was the best choice. The group of people rushed to the river, but there was no sign of the round devil, only the turbulent aura of space. Seeing that the round devil had left, Faceless, who was hiding in the dark, quietly retreated and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, a large bell rang. It sounded like the roar of an ancient giant. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.